Now let's talk about the Transformers agenda, aka they're putting chemicals in the energon and trying to turn our bots gay.
Welcome to the FAPcast.
Howdy, folks. Who's missing? Someone's missing. I feel like there's an empty slot here.
Well, see, you know how you're trying to kill the other Bob?
Uh-huh.
Someone was trying to kill Dane.
Oh.
And it turns out the Dane and the anti-Dane, they imploded. They touched each other in a very private spot, and they have since ceased to be.
Well, okay. I thought what happened was Dane took a, quote, sabbatical, and then just coincidentally the week he does that, a bunch of celebrities start dropping dead.
I mean, that's
like
true
all in
too.
The span of a week. So I'm not saying there's a connection there. But it does very much feel like somebody got activated and received kill orders.
I can neither confirm nor deny that Dane killed Gene Hackman and his wife. Also, my condolences to Gene Hackman's family and his wife's family in your trying time.
Yes.
Let's see if I can play the intro.
A couple of other people died this week, too.
Oh, who else died this week?
Oh,
that woman from Buffy. Didn't she die?
Yeah, Michelle Trachtenberg died. And the same day, Robert Orci
died,
the screenwriter, whose picture in the articles looks a lot like the guy that played Xander on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I was like, wait, did we lose Xander and Dawn on the same day?
No, that would be...
Although that particular actor is, from what I've heard, a piece of shit anyway. But
is he?
That's what I've heard. I cannot verify that. I've just heard it through the rumor mill. But yeah, so we lost 3 celebrities at least. I think a singer, like a soul singer from the 60s and 70s, also passed away this week. So Dane's been busy out there.
Yeah, Dane is the sleeper agent. We're going to have to call, what's Critical Drinker's, like, fictional spy crew?
Jack Ryan, Nathan Drake Reacher? Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. That guy. He's going to have to get on it.
Oh, what are they called? The Shepherds.
That's the Shepherds, yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to have to take down Dane. That's going to be my Critical Drinker fan fiction.
No, but the reality is, as announced last week, Dane is stepping away from live streaming for a little while, taking a break, focusing on other creative projects. And in the meantime, he's left all of us flapping in the wind, not knowing what the hell we're doing. So it falls to us to carry on the FAPcast legacy.
Yes. So while the showcast is faffing in the wind, we are fapping in the wind.
Yeah. At least we're not fapping against the wind.
Right. Don't do that. No, that's a mess. That's
especially where I live in LA, where the Santa Ana winds are not to be trifled with.
No, that sounds like a really sticky situation.
Yes.
Yeah, we heard about Hackman. We were just talking about that, Lucifer. That's the one I knew was Gene Hackman and his wife. Apparently died mysteriously. Like they think he might have been killed.
Yeah, right? That's what I'm saying.
Right.
We know. I'm not saying we know who did it.
We don't know that we don't know who did it.
Exactly. So anyway, what are we talking about today, Morgan?
Well, we're talking about another celebrity who is at present, at time of recording, still alive.
They better watch themselves.
They better watch themselves. And that is a Miss Blake Lively, the spouse of one Ryan Reynolds of
Lady
Wolverine
Deadpool herself.
Yeah, Lady Deadpool.
Right. So we're.
Oh, go ahead. So we're talking about her and the drama surrounding the manufactured controversy about her over several interviews and stuff, and like the director of the movie she was working on, kind of a piece of shit, it sounds like. And he hired some of the same people that helped some other scumbags when they had a media crisis. So
Yeah.
just the best people.
Yeah, and a firm that what they do is manufacture, like you said, they manufacture witch hunts, essentially, social media outrage and moral panics around, usually around women.
Yep.
Who are accusing popular white men, or at least powerful white men, of some kind of sexual misconduct or abuse. And these firms get hired to manipulate social media and make it look like the outrage against these women is totally organic, and these women are all, whores and bitches and stuff. Let me mute myself. There's a siren coming by.
Yep. Which has gotten a lot easier in the age of unmoderated social media that we're in now, and the use of large language model machine learning, which the industry now likes to refer to as generative AI, to broadcast and heighten that manufactured outrage.
We'll be talking about generative AI a little bit later too.
Yep. And to bring it together in the middle, we're going to talk about white men who hate women and love generative AI. And that is, of course, Elon Musk and the Republicans, and how they fucking suck some more. Because they suck every week. That's not going to change for a while.
And not in a good way.
No, they don't suck in a good way.
All right. So, do we want to share an article or what? What are we going to do with the Blake Lively thing?
Why don't you share that article? I think if you share it, I can put it on screen.
All righty then. Let's see here. I'm going to have to go over here. Share that. And here we go. Can you see that?
I can, so I can add it to the stage, and there we go.
All right. So I'm going to have to stay on this window. I will not be able to see chat or anything.
Yep, I'll have to keep an eye on those rapscallions. Say nice things about Bob in chat.
Yes. Otherwise, I will remind you, Dane is in the field.
Wait, are you the handler?
Shh.
Oh, shit.
Right. So this is a story that was published almost a week ago, and the story itself is older, right? This argument between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni has been going on for a while, and it started, from what I can tell, it started with the sudden emergence of a bunch of people being mad about Blake Lively, for unspecified reasons. I'm still not sure what they were mad at her about, but they were all of a sudden there was a bunch of social media accounts talking about her being a mean girl and a privileged white lady, and being rude to an interviewer one time 10 years ago or something, right? And it turns out that this was the result of Justin Baldoni, whom she was about to sue for sexual harassment, hired a crisis management public relations firm to character assassinate Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
And so the wrinkle here is that, unlike everyone else this has ever been done to, Blake Lively has amended her lawsuit, and she is now suing not just Justin Baldoni, but also the people from the PR firm who did this to her. And she brought receipts. So that was what the big deal was here. But this article is about the whole ecosystem of fake outrage and the way it's manufactured from central hubs around the country. And it isn't just an organic thing that happens. So there are lessons here, I think, to be learned for lots of other cases we've seen recently too.
Yeah.
And cases we will see in the future. And not just sexual harassment cases, but also like anytime there's a media outrage against like ex female characters, a Mary Sue, or, Brie Larson said something and hates men,
Right.
A lot of the same tactics are used in those cases.
With the Rewriting Ripley crew actually did some research on the people who were posting on a lot of that stuff back around the time of The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. And they documented that, yeah, a lot of that outrage was from bot accounts or suspicious accounts.
Yeah. And they were cooked up in literal white supremacist think tanks and forums.
Yep.
Like the Boycott Episode 7 hashtag, and I believe the Ray is a Mary Sue hashtag were started by Jack Posobiec.
Yep.
And a white supremacist group called VDare. And it went viral from there.
Right.
So let's take a deep dive in this article for a little bit, I guess.
Sure.
I can highlight things like this.
Go for it.
Have you read the article?
I have not read this specific one.
Okay. So let's start, I guess, this paragraph here, right? For the past 6 months, social media platforms have been flooded with accounts pillorying Blake Lively. Lively starred in Gossip Girl and It Ends With Us, the Colleen Hoover adaptation that came in number 17 at the worldwide box office last year. Lively's lawsuit is against Justin Baldoni, who was previously mainly known for appearing in the CW show Jane the Virgin. He acquired the rights to produce, direct, and star in the movie based on Hoover's best-selling book. Baldoni countersued Lively for defamation. Does this sound familiar to anyone?
Sounds a lot like the
Amber Heard case.
The Amber Heard case. I was trying to remember her name. I am really bad at celebrities.
Okay. Well, this paragraph clarifies it. If this sounds like a redux of the smear campaign against Amber Heard that peaked during the 2022 defamation trial against Johnny Depp, that's because this is a new chapter in the same playbook. Baldoni's crisis publicist, Melissa Nathan, who Lively is also suing, worked for Johnny Depp during the trial. Some of the same YouTubers who covered the trial through a strictly anti-Heard and pro-Depp lens have been churning out hate videos about Lively, earning millions of views and thousands of dollars. And anti-Lively sentiment has dominated the comment section on platforms like Reddit and TikTok. So let's pause right there for a minute, because I want to talk about this guy, Justin Baldoni. Very much like Neil Gaiman and Daniel Green, a booktuber who was recently accused of this stuff. Mm-hmm. Baldoni marketed himself as as a feminist, and even ran a podcast. I think he's even also done a TED Talk and did a podcast about toxic masculinity and really leaning into being like the new male type. And turns out behind the scenes, he was body shaming and sexually harassing Blake Lively on the set of their movie.
So when it turns out when it comes to speaking of toxic masculinity, he's something of a subject matter expert then.
Yes. And the reason I find these particular guys in particular enraging is because they validate the right-wing trope that all feminist men are secretly sexual predators. Right. This is the kind of thing that lends that some credibility.
It's the thing they hang their hat on for sure, is that we'll look at so-and-so. And we even saw that with the Neil Gaiman story, is that the person who pushed that story in an interview said that she went and did that story not to bring to light a sex pest, but in the hopes that the left would circle their wagons around Neil Gaiman like the right does with their own sex pests, and was dismayed when the left just cut him the fuck out.
Yeah, exactly. That did not happen to Justin Baldoni, as far as I know. So time will tell.
Time will tell, yeah.
Yeah. But, and that's why we see a lot of these YouTube channels doing this to Blake Lively too, because they are expecting there to be a bunch of people circling the wagons to defend Justin Baldoni, because he's a progressive. So they're expecting progressives to defend him so that they can set up progressives to be knocked down in their own content, where they talk about how the progressives are, degenerates and stuff like that.
So do you want to know who gave a big speech just the other week defending Justin Baldoni?
Who?
Megyn Kelly. She gave one at CPAC.
Huh. Megyn Kelly was at CPAC?
Yeah.
All right. That's another one I'm scratching off the list. Maybe, no, I'll add her to my I can fix her list.
Oh, God damn it.
Oh, I did not know she was a conservative. Wow.
Really? No, you didn't. She used to be on Fox News.
Oh, wait, I'm confusing her with, who am I confusing her with?
I don't know.
Megan Fox. That's what I thought.
Megan Fox.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Megyn Kelly.
No, fuck Megyn Kelly. I don't like her either. Yeah. She's not on my I can fix her list.
No.
Anyway, so let's see. Lively's suit alleged that Baldoni and his business partners paid between $75,000 and $175,000 for a social manipulation campaign that included astroturfing, which is when multiple inauthentic accounts pose as organic grassroots movements, and boosting online content disfavorable to Lively while suppressing negative content about Baldoni. In August, days after Baldoni and Nathan discussed these strategies and prices in text messages, screenshots of which were included in Lively's lawsuit, the internet began to writhe and seethe with unbridled hatred for Lively. So note what happened there. A bunch of people had a secret, semi-secret little confab by text, and money changed hands to create a hate campaign against Blake Lively. And then a few days later, the hate campaign emerged, and it worked for a little while.
Well, and I think this sort of shows that the wagons weren't going to circle around him. That having to do this means you don't think wagons are going to circle, and that you need something like this to create controversy or to create deniability, so that way no one circles anything.
Yeah. So in January, after Lively went public with her allegations and Baldoni filed his countersuit, I saw an even I, meaning the author of this article, saw an even bigger swell of online abuse targeting Lively. This time, I also noticed information about members of Baldoni's team being suppressed. So I think what Lively originally accused Baldoni of was sex pest kind of things, like body shaming her, after she had just had a baby, I think, after filming this movie.
Yeah.
So she still had her baby weight on, and they were kind of body shaming her about that, because there was a scene where the script calls for him to pick her up, I think. And he was saying, well, I don't know if I can pick you up. You're so fat now, that kind of shit. And one of the producers of the movie, she alleges, came into her trailer while she was topless and just stood there talking to her and staring at her the whole time, rather than knocking on the door,
right,
and making sure it was okay, because this was her dressing room, basically.
Right. Yeah, you might want to knock first.
Yeah, and he said that he has a policy of always looking directly at the person he's talking to, so that makes it okay.
Likely story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pro tip: if you okay, so let's say you're just in a hurry, you want to talk to someone, so you just go into their room without knocking.
Yeah.
And they are some form of undressed. Even if you have to talk to them, even if it's very important, you could at least turn around, step outside the door.
If their door is closed, you don't walk in.
Right. Just don't do that in the first place. But if you make that accident, there are still ways to recover from that faux pas.
Exactly.
It's not hard.
Yeah. So this story exposes injustices against people in the entertainment industry and people who are subjected to biased coverage of them online. It is yet another example of the misogynistic response to women reporting sexual harassment and retaliation, which further harms victims and emboldens perpetrators. Today, this cycle of abuse is broadcast to the modern world, or to the world, as a modern witch trial, which is kind of that's the phrase that kind of caught my eye here, given that FAPcast focuses on moral panics.
Right. Of which
and how this is kind of a manufactured moral panics, like most moral panics are.
Right.
But this is like the 21st century spin on that.
Yeah.
Because Lively's lawsuit also offers a peek behind the curtain in the business of social manipulation, a little understood but widely influential industry that can sway a vocal minority on topics ranging from politics to business to entertainment and beyond. Social manipulation is weaponized by Trump and his allies in their path to destroy the American system of government, only to be received with thunderous applause. These tactics are tested on victims of harassment and abuse. I'll say that again. They are tested on victims of harassment and abuse. So what they learn here will be applied to other things.
Right. Think of like, we've covered like what Kiwi Farms does and what 4chan has done and things like Gamergate. This is that on an industrial scale. This is that sort of harassment campaign as a business, as a thing you can put money down and pay to have done to someone, not just hoping internet trolls will take you up on it for fun, but to pay professionals to do it.
Yeah. And it's worth noting that they know this will work because they've seen it work. They know that because we live in a rape culture and you know, there's a lot of internalized misogyny floating around. All they have to do is put the scarlet letter on somebody.
Right.
And society will respond accordingly. They don't have to trick anybody, really, outside of the initial deception of, you know, hiding the fact that there's money behind this and that this was a calculated campaign. They hide that, but everything else feels organic because this prejudice and this misogyny is already baked into society.
Right. People are primed to believe it.
Yeah.
And even just with how people work, once it comes out that it is manufactured, people who have bought in already aren't going to cash their chips.
Yeah.
They're just likely to double down.
My favorite bit from this story, I don't know if it's mentioned in this article, is that in one of the court filings between these two parties, Justin Baldoni, or Justin Baldoni's lawyer, said that Ryan Reynolds' depiction of Nice Pool in the movie was an obvious caricature of Justin Baldoni. And I don't think anyone would have seen that if he hadn't said that.
Right. If he hadn't said it, no one would have seen that.
Right.
But he said it.
Yeah.
And now we all see it.
Yeah. The lawyer was like, yes, this man bun having fake feminist who's only fake nice is obviously referring to my client. Don't you see it?
Well, if true, because we don't know if it's true, right? I don't think Reynolds has said one way or the other because he's smart enough to shut up and lawyer up.
Yeah.
Which is what you do in these situations. If that is true, what a magnificent troll on theme for the Spirit of Deadpool movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, okay, if I was the level of scumbag that would sexually assault a coworker, and I'm not, and if that coworker's spouse made a movie character that was just making fun of me, I would be impressed and honored. But I guess I'm not a scumbag, so, or at least that flavor of scumbag.
Yeah, and it's a testament to how thin-skinned Tony apparently is, that he saw that and just freaked out.
Right.
And was paranoid that people would assume it was him when he's not really that famous. And like, I'd never heard of the guy before this.
No, I hadn't either.
Like, I had to be reminded who he was. You know, so he wasn't famous enough that anybody who saw a possible caricature of him in a movie would instantly go, "Oh, that's Justin Baldoni," right? No one did that except him and his lawyer.
That also strikes me as confessing.
Yes. Very much so.
Your client says that character was based off of them with those negative traits. That sounds like a confession to me. It sounds like you just confessed to having those traits that you have previously denied. Sorry.
All right. So then this section of the article it just gets more and more granular. I don't want to go because it's a very long article. I don't want to go too much into it. People should go read it for themselves. But it goes into how this firm went into websites like Reddit and TikTok and manipulated the comment sections and the downvoting and upvoting systems to suppress stories or negative content about Baldoni and boost negative content about Blake Lively. Like they just had people on payroll who created a bunch of sock accounts and would go into Reddit comment sections, or Reddit, I guess all Reddits are comment sections, but would go into Reddit threads and look for things that were critical of Justin Baldoni and just hit them negative, downvote them constantly. Because Reddit is one of the few forums where downvoting actually affects the algorithm.
Yeah.
Right. So I think they note here that one comment had been downvoted to -82, which isn't like a lot, but it was enough that Reddit just did not automatically display that comment. You had to scroll down and search for it and click on it to expand it. Whereas upvoted comments calling Blake Lively a witch were just open to everyone and automatically displayed.
Well, I think this, we're going to see more of this in an age where, major social media platforms are doing away with anything that resembles moderation.
Yeah.
Or in the case of like Twitter, where under Elon Musk, it has anti-moderation, where and even now Facebook has this too, where certain hateful things are acceptable, not just neutrally moderated, but actively you can say X about Y, but you can't say X about Z.
Yeah. Yeah. As will probably come up later, billionaires and conservatives think that free speech means they get to say whatever they want.
Right.
And the rest of us have to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I want to highlight, I guess before we move on, I wanted to highlight one particular thing about this, which is gaslighting. Because one of the things that happened in this campaign is that these people went into pro-Lively Reddits and started downvoting things. And one of the moderators here said it was actually making us second guess ourselves, because that's what this kind of thing does. It makes you think you're wrong.
That's the point.
Yeah. So this is why, I figured this out years ago, not that I'm super smart or anything, but I knew this kind of thing goes on. So that's why whenever I see stories like this, Me Too kind of stories, my default position is I believe what the woman or femme-coded person is saying until overwhelming evidence demonstrates that there isn't an astroturfed hate campaign against them coming from the other side. Which apparently makes me a unicorn or something.
Sure. Whatever that means these days. But I think that in general, for me, is with these sorts of things, when it comes to a celebrity, my first reaction is I don't care.
Yeah.
Because what is going to happen if they are actual celebrities, right? I think we're talking about micro celebrities and YouTubers and stuff. That's a whole other can of worms. That maybe I'll circle back to. But these people are going to lawyer the fuck up. They're going to shut the fuck up, and they're going to fight out in the courts.
Mm-hmm.
And the court of public opinion is going to be a cesspool.
Mm-hmm.
That unless I have something of note to add, I don't see any benefit of adding my voice to the choir one way or the other, because it is going to be such a shit show. Now, an example of where I did have something to say is with the Vic Mignogna stuff, where I had been told by friends who worked as convention staff going back to the mid 2000s that like, hey, keep our friends away from this guy. He's kind of a weirdo.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of shitty to the con staff, and hearing things like that. So I had something to say that was like, hey, I have a factual thing I can say, but otherwise it's just a hearsay of the internet.
Yeah.
When it comes to YouTubers and micro celebrities, then I take Bob's position of, especially because I have no say in this, right? I'm not a judge. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a jury member. I'm not a moderator on YouTube. Yeah, I'm going to believe the woman, or the more femme-coded person, or just whoever is making the claim of assault. Because often, that's another thing we don't talk about, is that this sort of environment that Baldoni is using discourages men from ever speaking up either. And they're already discouraged from speaking up about sexual violence.
Yeah.
And we, men's rights activists out there, if you're hearing this, like, you and I both agree that men should be able to talk about negative sexual experiences, and when they feel they've been hurt by partners, that's something they should be able to be open about and be accepted for.
Yes.
So come on over. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's help each other out here.
I used to be of the opinion that whatever, these are celebrities, I don't care. But when I learned how this kind of thing consciously manipulates and feeds on cultural misogyny, that has trickle down effects for regular people.
That's fair.
Right? That it just like makes the culture of disbelief and blame towards survivors all the more powerful.
Right.
And so I've recently, within the last few years, decided that as a cisgendered white straight man, it is important for someone who looks and sounds like me to be offering a counter narrative in real time whenever I can.
It's a very fair perspective.
To raise these questions, because otherwise, survivors of any gender will just be piled on. They're going to be piled on anyway. But if I can do some little thing that eventually reaches some of them and lets them know they can come to my comment section or my neighborhood or wherever, whatever group I happen to be a part of, they will have an advocate there whose social privilege will be taken slightly more seriously than theirs.
Right.
It shouldn't be.
It's the way it is.
But it will be.
Because that is another important part, is that even without this sort of manufacturing machine, this industrialized hate campaign, assault survivors are normally disbelieved, even by people close to them in their life. Yeah. Like, I have had friends and acquaintances who've had those experiences, who have lost friends because they were assaulted. And that friend, they were all part of the same friend group, and the people chose the assaulter. And I've had to kick people out of my role-playing groups for being assaulters and just like, get out. Because if someone comes to you with that accusation, you take it seriously, and you just, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to ask and look someone in the face and go, did you do this? And they won't be able to hide it from you very well. You'll know.
Yeah. Everyone should familiarize themselves with the concept of DARVO.
Yes.
Which is an acronym for deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. Because it's a specific set of tactics that are used by abusers and narcissists to shift blame away from themselves and towards the person who's accusing them. And that's essentially what firms like this are doing to Blake Lively and other women that they're paid to do this to. They weaponize those tactics with a ton of money behind them.
Right.
And I think the most applicable tactic for the general public, when in situations like this, when trying to navigate through Darvo stuff, is ignore public opinion.
Yeah.
Just ignore it. And if you're interested in the case, go directly to first-person sources or original sources and look up what they actually said, what is actually being alleged, and what each side said about what happened. Like if you're dealing with a case of alleged sexual assault that took place like in a hotel room or like in a tent at a campsite or where there was only 2 people there, and you have 2 narratives to judge between, and one of them gives very specific details about what happened, and the other one just says, oh no, it was all consensual. Right. The other side doesn't explain how they knew. Like one side says, I gave X, Y, and Z signals that this was not consensual, and the other side doesn't respond with, well, I received these X, Y, and Z signals that it was consensual. They just say, oh no, it was consensual.
Right.
So one side has specificity, the other side doesn't.
That's a clue.
You should probably trust the side with specificity more, in my opinion. Anyway.
Right. And especially like if you see a out of the blue hate campaign with something like this, you could almost bet money that, oh no, the accuser is correct. Like,
right.
Just out of like if it's instantaneous, if the first thing you hear about it is the hate campaign, then you know it's fake.
Yeah. And look for what the accused person does. Like, so the smart thing to do if you're accused of this is just shut the fuck up and get a lawyer.
Right.
Right. If the first thing they do is start spreading rumors or they go to their social media and start calling the other person a whore, or they may not use that word, but they'll say, oh, this person was a sex worker or has sex work in their past, or, oh, this person was promiscuous, or this was a consensual affair.
Right.
And this person is out for money or whatever. Like all these usual talking points. You should be very suspicious of that narrative.
Right.
When somebody accuses another person of something, both of them, the next step for both of them is to shut up and go into a courtroom.
Yeah. And like for an example, and he's a bad guy, more than likely, with Neil Gaiman, is that's exactly what he did, right? The accusations came out. He shut the fuck up. He lawyered the fuck up.
Yeah.
Because if you're innocent, that's also the thing you do. Is you go, someone is accusing me of this. The way I handle this is to sue the crap out of them. And if you are being accused of sexual harassment and you did not do it, then by all means, sue the crap out of them. Yeah, they're doing a disservice to all survivors everywhere.
Exactly. And to be clear, false accusations do happen from time to time.
They're exceedingly rare, but they happen.
Yes. I don't know of any famous ones right offhand, but they do happen.
They do happen.
And statistically, they're not any more common than other false reports than false reports of other types of crimes. And I want to distinguish between false reports and false accusations, because a person who reports I was mugged is not lying usually about the fact that they were mugged. They may be mistaken who they accuse of mugging them, right? So false reports of sexual assault or harassment are no more common than false reports of like mugging or breaking and entering. And that's different from a false accusation.
Right. Where you
but that is for the courts to decide, not for us to decide.
Right. And that's just kind of the way it has to be. Like,
and that's what believe victims means, right? When someone reports to you, like I've had people disclose to me in private life that they were raped or otherwise sexually abused, and I believe them.
Yeah.
I don't ask, are you sure you got the right person, or are that's all for later. Those questions will be asked in a proper forum later. If
Right.
But when someone tells you this happened to me, you should believe that and start there. Validate their experience and then conduct an let the proper authorities conduct an investigation.
Right. Especially, and it's unfortunate the proper authorities, and this doesn't help victims at all, are often prone to
not believing the victim.
Not like, for instance, the Wisconsin Supreme Court race is on right now. Republican groups are dumping a bunch of money into the state. Elon Musk is the conservative candidate because it's nominally a nonpartisan election, but of course that means it's a hyper-partisan election. He used to be the attorney general under Scott Walker, and in his time as attorney general, he processed either 6 or 9 rape kits. Like, he just put the brakes on that and was like, we're not processing those. That's not worth the state's time. Never mind that they are required to do that by law.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help victims at all. And that's kind of why you have to lawyer up. And that sucks too, because a lot of people can't afford a lawyer, especially when it comes to things like these civil actions, which is why we see when there's a lot of sex crimes related legal actions, it's civil lawsuits, not criminal. We saw this with Donald Trump last year, where he was found criminally liable for sexual assault. He wasn't found guilty of sexual assault because it was a civil lawsuit, because good fucking luck getting that to go to a criminal trial, especially because your lawyer isn't responsible for that. That's the state attorney or the district attorney. And the reason it has to be a civil lawsuit is that stuff is handled criminally by a state attorney. But also, like, that's not going to get them paid.
Yeah.
And we live in a capitalist hellscape where your lawyer needs to get paid.
And this is also the reason why a lot of survivors who don't have a lot of resources will often go to social media. Because the court, as flawed as it is, the court of public opinion is the place where they can be given a hearing. And because they know that the proper authorities are probably not going to be helpful to them. They should be, ideally, they should be able to go to the proper authorities who have the proper legal authority to investigate these things and be believed. But experience has taught them they probably won't be. So they go to social media and air this stuff out, and often knowing full well that it's going to ruin their lives.
Yeah.
At least for some number of years going forward. So just keep that in mind too. Whenever you see people coming to social media, making accusations against someone with a larger platform or like a super famous person, part of the reason that's happening is because they feel like they can't be heard anywhere else.
Right. This is why we had, like the Weinstein stuff go the way it was, is that what lawyer is going to take this guy on? And often because, he preyed on aspiring actors, had them in contracts where any dispute with them had to be handled through arbitration. And a lot of civil claims lawyers won't work arbitration cases because the rules are different.
He didn't just do it to aspiring actors.
No, he did not.
He did it to
a lot.
Actors.
Yeah.
If you go back and because the Weinstein case answered so many questions for me about why this particular crop of talented, hot, young actresses who were all up and coming stars in the late 90s and early 2000s, almost all of them just kind of disappeared. Like Ashley Judd, Mira Sorvino, Gwyneth Paltrow squeaked by.
Right.
But a whole handful of them, that happened to them.
Yeah.
And then you found out why. It was Harvey Weinstein, ruining their lives, basically. And Ashley Judd, last I checked, is suing Harvey Weinstein for lost wages.
Good.
Because she was basically cast in The Lord of the Rings and went so far as to, they were giving her costume fittings, and she was attending table reads. And then just one day they stopped calling her out of the blue, and she never knew why. And she has since learned, because of the court cases and the reporting that came out, that Harvey Weinstein personally called Peter Jackson and said, if you keep Ashley Judd in your movie, we will not distribute it. And Peter Jackson was like, well, fuck.
What do I do?
I have to get rid of you. So I feel personally robbed.
Yeah, you do.
Ashley Judd would have played Arwen, Eowyn, or Galadriel. She hasn't revealed what role they were considering her for. But those were the only 3 available, and she would have been amazing in all of those.
Yeah. So not only does sex crimes ruin the lives of the victims, but they also ruin your entertainment experience. So
I don't want to throw shade at the people who were in the Lord of the Rings movies, because they all did awesome, right? But I was an Ashley Judd stan, right, at the time.
Okay.
And had she been in that movie, I think I just would have died of excitement.
Aww. The only one I'll criticize in that movie is Orlando Bloom. He knows what he did.
Well, he was just there to look pretty.
I know.
He barely spoke in any of those movies.
I know.
I used to joke with people. I would go, man, that Legolas chick was hot, wasn't she?
You telling that joke is cruel. That's mean. I love it. I'm so proud of you.
Because they always go, wait, I thought there was a guy. There was a guy, right? And I'd go, was it?
You son of a bitch.
And then I would act like all like gender confused, like, oh my God, did I just have the hots for a dude? Oh my God.
Dude looks like a lady, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he was just there to look pretty. And fun bit of trivia, the only line of dialogue that Legolas ever speaks to Frodo across all 3 of those movies is, you have my bow. Otherwise, he never speaks to Frodo.
No, yeah, that's it.
But we are getting off the track.
We have you trailing off into Lord of the Rings. Who would have thought? Shocking. Yeah.
But we wanted to draw some connections here between social media outrage and Republicans.
Yeah, we got some. So this week, for those of you who somehow missed it, congrats. I'm very happy for you. I wish I was living your life. President Zelensky of Ukraine showed more courage than the entire American political establishment.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he is the leader of a country at war. So
yes.
I love how watching that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I love how watching that press conference, not that I want to be the body language expert or anything, but because I think that's largely bullshit, but how Zelensky kind of just came off as a Chad.
Yeah. I wonder if I can. All right, we're going to try something new because this is my first time. Because Dane is missing and definitely didn't kill Gene Hackman.
Dane is definitely not in the field carrying out his kill orders.
Definitely. Let's see if I can play this bad boy.
And what are you trying to play?
I'm trying to play. Oh, it's the full meeting.
Hmm.
I just want the hoedown. Oh, there's already an SNL skit for it. That was fast. All right. Let me see. Vamp for me for a second. Okay. I think we'll just play the whole thing. All right. This skit is funny. Okay. Good to know. I'm not really an I will have to at some point watch that. I don't want to put it on because SNL will 1000% copyright strike us.
Yeah. Myers was great. Mike Myers?
They brought, wow. Let's see how I can do this. All right, we're going to try and share, present. Okay.
I may have to refresh my my screen here. I appear to be frozen at my end.
Uh-oh. Let me do this. Oh, there's an A. All right, let me... Sorry, folks. We're... Oh. All right. Sorry. Oh, I guess... All right. Select window or screen. That's the one. All right. Add to stage. Add Bob to stage. Welcome back, Bob.
Hello. Sorry about that.
All right.
My
Let's see
screen
if this...
froze up on me.
All right. Can you hear this?
I cannot hear that.
You cannot hear it.
No.
That's really unfortunate. Let's see what I can do.
If you're in, when you shared the screen, there should have been an option for you to share audio from that window. You may have to go back and toggle that switch.
All right.
Because it does not do it automatically.
All right. Remove. Present. Okay. Let's stop screen. Sorry, folks. We're doing this live for the first time, and this is my first time behind the wheel.
Well, we've done it live before. It's just not your first time being in the Dane chair.
Yeah. So So it doesn't show me an option to play the video or to play the audio. Oh. All right. Well, that's unfortunate.
Let me check some stuff out on my end.
All right.
You're hitting share screen, right?
So I hit present, share screen.
Okay. So there should be a dialog box with 2 tabs. One says window and one says entire screen.
No, I'm not getting that, but I'm on Firefox,
that?
so it's being Firefox about it. Let me try it. Let me try this. Oh, God damn it. All right, everybody drink. All right, allow.
Hydrate, everyone.
Yes, everyone hydrate. All right, we're trying it one more time.
Nope, I hear nothing.
Okay, so let's see if I can. Yeah, all right. Well, we'll have to. All right. Well, so much for that. We'll move on from sharing my Discord. Oopsie. Well, that's our top secret Discord. So.
Yes, where Dane does not receive his kill orders.
Dane does not receive his kill orders.
And I am not his handler.
Despite what Bob Chaos might tell you. If Bob Chaos tells you that Dane is a super spy, he is lying. And you should report it to Bob of the Old Ways, the superior Bob, immediately.
Yes. So I don't think we really need to hear the audio. I'm pretty sure most people watching this know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, we'll pop it in chat just for people who haven't want to listen on their own time. But yes, so President Zelensky and Comrade Trump had a discussion, and Zelensky made him and JD Vance look like a fool.
Yeah. In our opinion. I mean,
yeah.
Somebody somewhere thinks this was a display of great leadership from Vance and Trump, I'm sure. I haven't met any of those people.
I haven't, yeah. They're all on Fox News.
Yeah. The thing I found the dumbest about the whole thing was that they began, if you watch the entire press conference, they began with Zelensky personally thanking President Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then it goes into not the American people. He thanked Trump
specifically. Because
and then Vance was like, "Have you said thank you this whole time?"
Right. Proving that
like,
Vance has not
just did.
Listen, you know who really was like the star of the show though, like the dark horse in the room?
Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio. I'm gonna share
His
this.
best impression of Homer Simpson fading into the shrubbery. Yeah.
Yes. Let me. So for those who have not seen this wonderful image, here's our Secretary of State wanting to be anywhere else.
There's another image going around too of our I don't know if it's our ambassador to Ukraine or the Ukraine ambassador to us, but she's literally going, oh God, what the fuck? Like in the picture.
Yeah, it's bad.
And then Rubio came out after this and tweeted out something praising Trump for his great leadership.
Great leadership.
Yeah.
Great. So great.
Yeah. Great, buddy. Great.
Now, keep in mind that the Trump plan here, for those of you who don't know what the proposal is that Zelensky took him to the mat for, is one, he wants Ukraine to sign over 50% of the mineral rights to their rare earth minerals to the United States.
Yeah. Forever.
Which is just doing a colonialism,
Mm-hmm.
just like classic colonialism. But also he wants to have a peace talks for Ukraine with Saudi Arabia and Russia in Saudi Arabia and not include Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. They want to do the same thing with Israel and Saudi Arabia,
Again,
without including Palestine.
Yeah. This is not the first time that Saudi Arabia and Israel and the U.S. have played this game.
Also worth noting, and I think this is the most telling detail of all, AP and Reuters were not allowed in that press conference, but Russian state media was.
Yep.
This was a show. This was a little act put on for Russian state media.
Yep.
I.e. for Vladimir Putin.
Donald Trump literally says at the end of the conversation, this will make great television.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's a criminally insane game show host.
And he loves Putin.
He does love Putin.
As he sits there in his resolute cuck chair.
Yeah.
The resolute cuck chair. That's what was going on. This was Donald Trump and J.D. Vance cucking themselves to Vladimir Putin on international television.
Yeah. And all of the tech billionaires who need all of those rare earth minerals.
Yeah. For their generative AI.
Right.
Bullshit. Yeah.
For all of their bullshit. Which probably means we should talk about, given that a country's, diplomacy is being hinged on mineral rights, we should talk about what they're using them for.
Look at what Lucifer Writing just wrote in the chat.
Oh. Oh, that's going up.
Reference Marco Rubio. Yeah.
You are awarded 1 point, my friend. Spend it wisely. That's beautiful. That can stay up there for a while. We're going to let that ride. It's playing Hungry Hippo with Connect 4 pieces.
This was such a... I have a lot of conservative people in my life, like in my family and stuff. And none of them thought this was cool. These are all people who voted for Trump.
Yeah.
Right. I argue with them all the time about Trump. They voted for him, and they thought this was stupid.
Yeah.
They don't disagree with the policy necessarily, but this performance was just stupid to them and counterproductive. So I don't know whose this was for other than Vladimir Putin.
It was for Vladimir Putin and the Liberal Democrat Party in Canada, who is seeing a resurgence and going, oh God, America's stupid. Let's not be that.
Yeah. And there's a lesson here for the Democrats too. There's two lessons. Number one, please notice how Trump and Vance are not acting like they fear electoral accountability in 2026 or 2028.
They have no fear. Well, they do
They have
have
no
fear,
fear.
but not of the election.
Right. Because I think there won't be elections personally, but at least not real ones. And number two, this is an extreme example, but this is an example of what wielding power actually looks like.
Yes.
So the next time we have Democrats in power, they cannot use the excuse of institutionalism to say that their agenda can't be passed, because there are ways to do things that are as dramatic as what Trump is doing and still work within the system.
Right.
Right. So this is at least giving the lie to 30 plus years of Democrats saying, well, we can't really do anything because we only have a 3-vote majority or whatever. Right.
Then this also really like shows that Trump cannot stop you. He does not actually know how to do it. He has not figured that out yet. Yeah. After being president for 4 years the first time and having a much better staff this time, Zelensky walked out of that room a hero of democracy around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Democrats, you can do that too.
Yep.
I mean, the governor of Maine just did it. And did it for trans people, something that, Bill Maher this weekend was, him and Rahm Emanuel were saying that, yeah, just throw the trannies under the bus. I can use that word, by the way.
Did they use that word?
I don't know that they did, because I'm not going to give them the time of day or the clicks. I just read the article.
Okay.
I would not be surprised. I believe Bill Maher has used it before. I don't know that Rahm Emanuel publicly has, but I would wager money he has privately. But yeah, like you do have political capital to spend, congressional Democrats. You need to spend it, because in the event you're going to get those elections you seem to believe in, your constituents have to want to vote for you for it to matter.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't. Your constituents don't want to vote for you because you don't show the fuck up.
Right.
Give us a reason to vote for you. It would take a reason, just the one.
Right.
We're not looking for much these days, but you can't even do that.
Yeah. I saw footage this week of a town hall meeting with I wish I could remember which Democrat it was, but it was a Democratic politician, and one of his constituents was literally begging him to get arrested.
Yeah.
Like he's saying, we will get arrested with you.
Yeah.
All you have to do is lead us. We will follow you. You will not be alone.
Yeah.
Please do something to get arrested and make these guys the bad guy.
Right. But they're too comfortable. They're too corporate.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
I keep thinking back to that moment at the Department of Education.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, where the Senate Democrat and some of the House Democrats showed up, and there was one
security guy
standing out front who was like super, like I don't know if he had a gun or not, but it was one dude, and all they did was sit there and scold him. If they had tried to push him out of the way, and even one of them had gotten tased, they would have seized the story. It would have been the Democrats' story to tell, right?
Right.
And they failed.
Yeah. And they continue to fail.
Yeah.
The only ones that seem to do anything are state level Dems, and that doesn't get enough national attention to develop a story around. It's good that they're doing it. I'm happy they're there, but like, you fuckers in Washington are the face of the party. Do something. Do any one thing.
Right.
Heck, just give Hakeem Jeffries a swirly. I know he's technically a Democrat, but I really want it. Chuck Schumer's a little old, so he might break. That's why I'm not saying to do Chuck Schumer. But if you feel like doing Chuck Schumer too, do that to Chuck Schumer as well.
Right. Hold votes of no confidence.
Yeah.
Against Schumer and Jeffries, which they'll probably lose, but do it anyway.
Do it anyways.
And use whatever provisions exist in the states of all of these Democrats who won't do anything to stage recall elections right now.
Yeah.
And then those of you who are not in leadership should be out there getting arrested or daring the authorities to arrest you, right? We need people to be politicians, not legislators right now, because that's where the real power lies, what they call the bully pulpit. You don't,
right.
There's very little you can do at the institutional level, but you can get on national TV and make these guys look like the bad guys.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. If you're Chuck Schumer, send a junior Democrat senator from some state, preferably a purple one, to go get arrested, and then just have a press conference about how the president is holding one of your caucus members in jail. Just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just for a little giggle.
There's a lot of people, even a lot of very conservative people, who, if they see footage of elected representatives of Congress getting tased, will be on the side of the elected representatives.
Yeah.
That will be a bridge too far for a lot of otherwise conservative people. And the Democrats they think there's going to be some moment where elected Republicans are going to turn on Trump.
No, they will not.
And they will not ever.
They will not.
Because I keep seeing them on TV going, well, we only need 3 Republicans in the House to flip, and we can stop all of this. And it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. They primaried all those people out.
They need to fear their constituents more than they fear Trump. And we're getting there, I think. But it's not going to be because their colleagues in Congress talk to them nicely.
No, it's because their constituents are blowing up their phones, are going to their town halls. Republicans are canceling town halls now because they're getting harassed by their voters. Republican voters are going, hey, the fuck are you doing?
Right.
And as a Democrat, your job is to go, hey, you know what? Hi, I see you. You person there. I see you mad at your person. I have a solution for you. Come into my tent. Come over here. We'll walk you through it.
Yeah. And I forgot what I was going to say. Never mind.
Sorry. I know I got kind of heated. I may feel things on this subject because I actually have a congresswoman who is like doing things, not enough. I want her to do more. I have called her and said, do more, goddammit. But Gwen Moore has like gone and like into Mike Johnson's office uninvited and been like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you letting Musk run all over the place? What are you doing with Medicaid? She's actually done things that could attract attention if the rest of the party were like, oh yeah, we're just all going to join you in there. We're just going to have our caucus meeting on his desk.
Yeah, that reminds me what I was going to say. This is the opportunity for Democrats to make billionaires the enemy.
Yeah.
They can be like, yes, there is a minority out there who's stealing your jobs and ruining your economy and driving up the price of eggs. And that minority is billionaires.
Yeah. And if they want, I understand tactically why they don't want to go, all billionaires are bastards, right? Even though they are.
Yeah.
But you know which ones are giving the money where, right? You can name names. You're a senator. They can't stop you. You can read that into the record. Yep. And that's just public record.
Yeah.
Do it.
Because right now, Musk is circling Medicare and Social Security. They're coming for those. And
those will be gone by the end of the month.
Yeah, they are. I've seen the town hall meetings where Republican voters are asking their Republican congressmen, like, what are we doing about the Social Security thing? And the Republican actually says, well, the only solution to the Social Security crisis is to cut spending. It's the only solution. And then people shout back, no, we can raise the cap on income taxes, and that will solve everything. And then the Republicans are like,
and the Social Security crisis is manufactured. is not real. What that is that the surplus going into the Social Security fund, the trust fund, will run out in the next 10 years. I think it's down to 8 now. And what that would mean is that they will have to dip into that trust fund, and Social Security payments in 8 years will be about 80% of what they are now, adjusted for inflation.
Yeah.
This is a solvable problem.
Right.
It has always been a solvable problem because your Social Security income, for those of you who don't make a bunch of money, is capped. So once you earn, I think it's $144,000, something like that. $170,000. You don't pay any more into Social Security. That was set decades ago. You could double that cap.
Yeah, that cap was put in by conservatives. Right?
Yeah,
originally
remove that cap.
Right. Originally, I've I could be wrong. Excuse me, but I could be wrong. But I think originally Social Security had no cap, and all income levels paid into the Social Security fund, and then a restriction was put on it and capped it at $170,000. So that means the first $170,000 you make is taxed as income for purposes of Social Security, and above that, none of your income is taxed. So a person who's making $180,000 a year stops, is paying a much more significant portion of their income into it than is a person like Elon Musk, who makes like $80 billion a month or something. I don't know, crazy like that. So the percentage of his income that he pays into Social Security is not even a rounding error.
No.
Whereas for the rest of us, it's like 15% or whatever. And all Congress has to do is say this cap at $170,000 of income doesn't exist anymore. Now you keep paying this, you pay the same rate of income tax regardless of your income, or you pay the same percentage.
Right.
I think it's staggered below 170,000. I think it's staggered like
it works its way. There is some level of progressive taxation to it.
Yeah. But just remove that cap and say everyone who makes any amount of income pays into it. Period.
Right. The other thing you could do is you could tax capital gains at a higher rate and apply that to Social Security. Especially because a lot of private retirement funds do a lot with capital gains. And often a lot of these billionaires are billionaires because they're paid in stock options that they then sell. And that doesn't affect Social Security taxes at all when we see these companies manipulating their stock prices to make a bunch of money and often lay people off to do it.
Yeah.
So capital gains income should be taxed more, especially when it comes to things like unemployment insurance and Social Security, because these corporations are actively using that system they have offloaded that expense onto the public. You are paying for their capital gains in addition to them making a bunch of money.
Right. And wealth should be taxed as well.
Yeah.
Like passive income and personal savings above a certain level should be taxed. I mean, we'll never do that in the United States.
No.
But that's what should happen. It should be impossible to be a billionaire.
Right. If you get, if you could even at over $1 billion, everything is taxed at 99%, and they give you a gold star because you wanted capitalism. Yeah. You can now retire happily. Stop.
Right. Which is what the marginal tax rate was in the 1950s, which is the golden era, right? That's the time that they all want to return to make America great again. That economic boom happened because the marginal tax rate above, I think, I forget what I forget the number back then, but in modern numbers, I think it's the first $3 million.
Yeah.
Everything above X number, we'll just pick a number.
Everything above X was taxed at 90%.
Yes. So we could just bring that system back,
Yeah.
taxing marginal income at 90% or even higher is what fueled the boom time of American greatness
Right.
that all these guys want to return to. And they think they can tax cut to billionaires the way back to that.
And they can't.
And they can't.
Because it turns out what that did is it made companies spend money. It made the wealthy invest their money because they were going to lose it anyways. Yep. So you may as well spend it.
Yeah. Now they are literally looking for things to spend money on. There's there's billionaires out there who their crisis is they don't know what to spend money on.
Right. I mean, that's all these tech bros building bunkers, right? Is they have more money than God, and they just lose their minds not knowing what to do with it, and being antisocial enough not to like talk to someone about that. Because like in the event, like I had access to all that money, I would spend it all immediately just because like I know so many people who could use that money to get out of trouble or to get ahead. It'd be all gone in a month.
Mm-hmm.
But my mortgage would be paid off, which would be great.
Yeah. I mean, if I made if somehow I got a windfall of $1 billion, I'd pay off all my debts, give everyone I loved a nest egg.
Yeah.
Give myself a nest egg, like, I don't know, $3 million, something like that.
Sure.
And then I would like give the rest of it to the government to like build bridges or like feed the hungry or something. I would just not keep it. Like
what do I need it for?
Yeah.
I have
like
shit to do.
I will not notice the difference between like where I exist right now. I would not notice the difference between $3 million in my savings account and $1 billion. I just would not notice the difference.
You wouldn't know the difference.
It would have no material, it would have the same material effect on me. Right. So, and it's the same way with these guys. They have so much money that they will not even notice. If we taxed marginal income at 90%, they would never notice.
They'd never. Yeah. You would, the line would still go up. Number would still go up. Especially if we didn't have a wealth tax, right? If we just today were like, it's 90% at the top, baby, they'd never notice.
Yeah.
We'd notice. They wouldn't notice. But fuck them, because they want to have the big number.
They want to be cool. That's what they want. They think they can buy their way into making all of us think they're cool.
Right. And I think that brings us nicely into our third segment.
Oh, look at that segue.
So, let's talk about what they call generative artificial intelligence. That's not what it is. It is not artificial intelligence. It does not meet the criteria to do that, but that's what they call it, so we'll refer to it as that. But I think before we talk about generative AI, we have to talk about the capitalist class and what they see tech and the tech industry as doing. I think to a lot of them, and to a lot of people in general, this applies.
Hold on a second. I just want to let you know.
Sure.
I need to step away for a minute.
Okay.
So keep talking. I will still be able to hear you. I just have to take care of something off camera.
Sure. Okay. You can go hide the bodies Dane dropped off. I understand.
Shh.
So tech is supposed to bring us the future. And like a lot of discussion came about this when we first had tablets introduced and the iPad, and about how that was like the pads in Star Trek or the data pads in Star Wars, but in real life, and they could do all of these things that you couldn't do before. It was bringing us to the future as seen on TV. Unfortunately, there's a dark side to the tech industry, and that is to create non-products. And what I refer to as a non-product is these applications that are a niche product that maybe you could work into other things. My go-to example for this is Skype. Skype was a startup, one of the early video calling programs, early voice over IP programs. And it was It got a bunch of money, got a bunch of investment capital, and then was bought up by Microsoft. And Microsoft worked it into Windows, and then into their corporate products, into their enterprise grade systems. And that eventually became Microsoft Teams, and Skype went away. And Teams sucks too. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, Skype is being shut down officially in May. I believe you are correct that it is in May. But this is these sort of non-applications. We're like, and Skype was, for its time, very innovative. And I don't want to demean Skype by calling a non-product. But when it's a good test case of what this looks like, where you have a startup that makes a niche program that you can work into other software or into other business suites and sell that as a package deal. And so a startup will get investment. They probably won't make any money with the product, but what will happen is those investors get paid out when a Microsoft or an Oracle or an Apple buys them up. This is the big driver of the whole Silicon Valley startup culture, is not making the future anymore. We're not making the future as seen on TV anymore. We are making these niche non-applications that aren't standalone products, but are meant to be worked into something else. Follow so far? Good.
Following.
So, one of the things that happened over time with this is that because the culture in the tech industry became about gobbling up these startups, right? Venture capitalists would invest in them until someone gobbled them up. And they would just shovel money in until either it became something like a DoorDash or an Uber and eventually starts to make money, or gets gobbled up, and usually gets gobbled up. But because these big companies kept doing it, the demand for it increased for investors. Investors wanted to make more of these startups so that the big companies would buy them more often and for more money, because now these big companies aren't, their competition with each other isn't, can we make a better product? Because like if you're Windows, you have a monopoly in the operating system space for home computers. If you're Oracle, you have a pretty large market share in like enterprise grade hardware, NVIDIA graphics cards, etc. So your competition is other big businesses trying to get the best value out of these startups you're buying. So these companies that are existing don't exist to turn a profit. They exist to get bought up and pay out to the investors. And this brings us to generative AI, which is really a machine rebranding of machine learning, which a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, was a potential useful tool, maybe on the way to artificial general intelligence, but maybe not. It wasn't really seen quite that way. It was an interesting technology where you could input data into an application, have it learn things about that data over time, and then have it replicate parts of that data, generating hypothetically new information with new variables. The most common use case was in computer programming, where you could put your code base into a machine learning application and then have it do things like check your code or fill out specific general code templates before you use them. Go, oh, create this code template with these variables, and it'll spit it out. Useful, but niche, very specific product, and also very local product. Something you would run on a virtual machine on a home server or locally on your workstation. Not these massive data centers we see now. And if you're one of these venture capitalists and you squint hard, it kind of looks like AI, right? You're telling a computer to do a thing, and then it does the thing. Well, that's fucking marketable. And while you had this sort of divide in the tech industry. Amusingly, Elon Musk was in the past, not so much anymore, was on the right side of this initially. Where he was one of the original investors in OpenAI, alongside Sam Altman and some others. But Sam Altman is now the CEO of OpenAI. And Sam Altman was kind of always in it for the money. And Elon Musk initially was not. Was very much like, this is a useful tool we need to develop. Going to be great. Now everyone's gone insane. Sam Altman was always a vulture capitalist, so fuck him. But it was this illusion of a game changer that machine learning, if it could be made into AI, would has a lot of potential energy to be the future product that the tech industry used to make. Your iPads, Windows, the internet. But that machine learning technology they've rebranded as AI, it's not that. There's this illusion over it to make it that. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Professionally, I am a subject matter expert on this. So I kind of know my stuff. It's my day job. Machine learning doesn't scale well. And it's in a couple of ways. First off, the more you want it to do, the more data you have to feed it. And exponentially more and more. Because not only does it have to know more, you have to try and divide it into discrete areas where you're not going to cross-pollinate. If I ask it, how do I overcome emotional trauma? It doesn't give me information for how to triage a traumatic bullet wound. Where just they don't understand human language, they're not a human, they're a computer. It just sees that set of characters and goes, that is trauma. And so when someone asks it about trauma, it's going to go, which trauma are they talking about? And can it guess the right one? Now, the other part of it is because it has to guess the right one, that takes more and more compute power, which is why we have this desire to bring us back to our billionaires, this need for rare earth metals, because the current hardware we use for this are advanced graphics cards made by NVIDIA. RX, I will, Dane is, has been activated. His sleeper code has been activated, and he is off doing things we cannot discuss. So yes, I have assumed direct control of the stream. You have been warned. Dun, dun, dun.
Mm-hmm.
But because you need this hardware to do this, the demand for it goes up and up. And because the algorithms haven't gotten more efficient, we're at a point where, like in the past, technology would become more efficient as it was iterated. But they're not really doing that anymore. There's a concept called Moore's Law that is worth looking into, but I don't want to get into it now because we're already 90 minutes into this. That sort of breaks down how technology progresses. I can be an overlord. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, I will accept overlord. Who doesn't want to be an overlord?
Yes, my lord.
Now we need the cowl. Get yellow contacts and just Sith out. So where was I? I lost my train of thought and my train of notes.
Generative AI is bullshit.
It is bullshit. So because you have the need for higher and higher tech for less efficient programs that can't parse their data, the solution that the IT companies, the AI companies have put into this is to just sort of keep tooling with their existing algorithms. And it has not solved the hallucination program. And the hallucination, like my go-to story for that is Google's Gemini AI was telling people to put glue on their pizza. That was a safe pizza topping. Super glue. Because some linguistic knick-knack somewhere just thought that. It just hallucinated that was a thing. Lawyers have been caught in court trying to use AI-generated briefings, and those briefings cite to court cases that do not exist. They have just wholly made up a court case because, I don't know, fuck it. It sounds close enough.
Yeah. There's the same thing's been done to fake scientific papers.
Yep. Which will, again, cite to other scientific papers that also don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna pop this up. I want to go into this. So, yeah, this is going to be increasingly common, and I think that this is sort of the use case for machine learning, right? I talked about this earlier with like inputting your code base so it can sort of check your code and pre-script some of your code for you. This is not inherently bad, other than the fact that it's using one of these cloud-based generative AI programs. Where your employer could invest in some sort of locally run niche machine that they control, because I can't imagine your boss wants OpenAI to own your email template formats. Because that is another part of this, is that these are copyright theft machines. That's what they do. ChatGPT and other AI that crawl the internet steal shit. And not only do they steal shit, they steal the wrong shit, because now there are there's code called robot.txt that you can put on your website to block AI crawlers from stealing stuff from your website and using the training data. And not only that, now, because of course these AI companies have tried to find workarounds for that, coders have reprogrammed malware to create AI pit traps, wherein if the AI crawler bypasses your robot.txt, it will feed it junk data infinitely using malware. It basically feeds it malware code, and it gorges itself on malware code into the AI's training data, and some script kiddie has to pull it out when they go, okay, who the fuck put this there?
Yeah. Worth pointing out also that this is not just a copyright theft device, it's also a labor elimination device, which is the point of your boss pressuring you into using ChatGTP, because if ChatGTP can do what you do, he doesn't have to pay you anymore. He can just get rid of you. He is being pressured, most likely, by investors or some other money person to get rid of his workers.
Right. So I would tell him, honestly, you're a professional. You know how to do it. Why do you need to waste your time going back and having the copyright thief do it?
Yeah.
No, I'm going to pull this up. I can do that now. I have the power. The thing is, tech libertarians want to do the thieving.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
The thing you have to understand about libertarians in the American sense is that they are not libertarians. They're fascists.
They're not classical libertarians like Bob and I.
They're not. Yeah. I, a classical libertarian, aka a socialist, am very concerned about this. But American libertarians are just like techno-feudalists, and they think that the guy with the most toys gets to decide what everyone else is allowed to do.
Right.
That's their definition of liberty. Liberty is when there is no government, but all other centers of power are free to do whatever they want. So there's no check on any individual, like a crime lord or a corporation. They just get to do whatever the fuck they want.
Whatever they want, yeah.
And that's their liberty. And if someone creates another center of power called a government to check those other threats to your liberty, they consider that a check on their liberty. So they hate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it does, because it makes so many mistakes, because it hallucinates, and they have not. Well, they always say they're so close to eliminating those hallucinations. They are no closer today than they were 4 years ago. It's just it's not there yet. It may never be there because they are iterating on the same programs, not making new, more efficient programs. Though we have seen DeepSeek from I forgot the name of the Chinese companies that made it, or is the company DeepSeek, and the model is O1.
I think it's the company and the product are both called DeepSeek.
DeepSeek,
I think.
okay. And the model is called O1 then.
Yeah. I could be wrong, but that was my understanding.
Yeah, I believe you are correct. I don't have it in my notes for today. Shame on me. But what they did, and this is where it gets funny, is because China's under these restrictions as to what hardware they can import, or rather re-import, because a lot of it's made there. So they have to make it and then send it to America and then buy it back from America, but they can't buy the best stuff because of import restrictions placed on by the Biden administration. And actually, I think initially by the Trump administration. They made a machine learning algorithm much more efficiently, and part of how they did that was allegedly OpenAI has alleged that they did that by stealing data from OpenAI by using their AI crawlers to harvest data from OpenAI's available resources. This happens a lot within Silicon Valley. It's a process called distillment, where you train an machine learning algorithm off of an existing training set that has already been processed by a machine. And this actually has some benefits as to like improving, because now instead of having a machine trying to parse out what humans did, it is a machine parsing what a machine already did. So there is some level of advancement actually there that will eventually be used to make these more efficient if the bubble doesn't burst. But they don't want the bubble to burst. Because what you have is a product that looks like it's about to work. Google has been saying Gemini is about 90% ready since 2022. And it's not any better no matter how much they force it into things. Apple's AI is pseudo-local, where there's a local version on the new iPhone generation, I believe the 16. But if it can't train yourself on your data, it will call out to ChatGPT. It'll search ChatGPT with your query instead. And it's actually worse than Siri. Some early research has shown that just like Siri searching Google back before Google had Copilot was more effective at finding the data you were looking for than Siri with Apple AI querying ChatGPT.
I want to ask a question.
Sure.
This is just an intuition I've had. I don't know tech at all, so I want to see how on the nose this might be. I've been wondering for a while whether we'll never get perfect facsimile AI art of like photorealistic art of people, because the zone of data that can be mined has been flooded with so much AI slop that it's just going to keep feeding itself more AI slop.
Particularly when it comes to art and not just text data, that seems to be the case.
Cool.
Is that like part of the issue with this distillation process that I was mentioning, is that you do have an amount of garbage in, garbage out that happens, wherein if you collect bad data and you don't have a method to refine that data, you will just generate more bad data. And in the field of AI art, that is all you're going to have, is that the more AI art there is, the more bad AI art there will be, because it will learn off of itself. So it can't correct its mistakes because it doesn't know what those mistakes are. That's not how computer heuristics works. That's how human heuristics work, but we're meat computers, not digital computers. It's a different thing. And so that's all you're going to have. And there's this sort of the illusion has created a delusion within the venture capitalist class and in these sort of top level companies, your Microsofts and the like. Wherein those venture capitalists their business model relies on them shoveling billions of dollars into a startup that then gets bought by a big company. They're shoveling those billions in, and all of these companies are operating at a loss. They will often publish their financial statements like, oh, we made X number of dollars. That's revenue. That's not net profit. So though we made $12 billion this year, for instance, I'm not going to use a specific company as an example. Sure, you brought in $12 billion into the door, but it cost you $30 million to run the company. So you're 18 billion to run the company. So now you're 18 billion in the hole on top of your losses from last year. And the top level companies are kind of waiting for that breakthrough. So they're also just investing. They're not buying. All the while, the vendors who make the hardware needed are continuing to do minimal innovation year over year, using more and more resources to do it because they can price gouge it. Because these companies have to buy it to stay competitive. Because it is just, the difference in the product is so slim right now that any level of advancement over your competitors is internally seen as a big deal. But there's no leap coming. So you have a gold rush for pyrite.
So the singularity is not around the corner. This is what I hear you saying.
No. Despite, I forget which AI company their CEO has said the singularity is coming for 10 years for 5 or 6 years now. Like the singularity is not anytime soon.
But what if they release all of the UFO tech they have hidden away in bunkers? That'll do it, right?
It's probably not compatible with our code base, so no.
No. We got all of our code base from that. See, this was covered in Star Trek.
No, I thought Star Trek covered that Vulcans gave us Velcro.
Well, that too. I mean, Voyager had that whole time travel two-parter.
Right, the time. Yeah,
that was soft disclosure. See, that was telling us where we really got fiber optics and things like that. Anyway, what I hear you saying is that this is all snake oil, and it's all they're just bluffing until the bubble pops and trying to see who can walk away with the most money.
And the thing is I think the difference between it and snake oil is like there is a limited use case for this technology. It's one of those things that like, excuse me. I'm trying to think of a good example off the top of my head. I guess because I'm tired and my brain is sort of on that right now. Like mods for video games, right? There's a use case for mods for video games, but it is never going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's never going to be $1 trillion industry. It's a neat, cool thing you can do with a computer. That's what machine learning is. And sure, it could have and has had limited use business application. But for every example of those, there's a glue on pizza or someone convincing a car dealership to give them a free car. And then that getting taken to court and the court saying, sorry, your thing said they get a free car. If you didn't want your AI customer service to give them a free car, you probably should have like had a person do that job instead. And also,
so this is why we want to pillage Ukraine and Greenland to get all these rare earth minerals.
Yes.
Okay.
This is what that is about, is that is that you have your NVIDIAs and other hardware vendors need these to make these graphics cards, especially because the places that these minerals come from right now are increasingly China friendly, not helped by our new administration and its complete abandonment of soft power.
Mm-hmm. They don't even believe soft power is a thing.
They don't believe in soft power. And never mind that, like, the American sphere of power has largely worked off of soft power for a century.
Mm-hmm.
Over a century.
Yeah. There's plenty of like valid anti-colonialist critiques to make of an agency like USAID, but those are not the reasons that they're eliminating that agency. No. They don't think we should be helping people. It's just
that's why. Yeah.
And that applies inside the country as well as outside the country, which is why they want to make everything into robots.
Because they don't have to pay and feed robots.
Yep. And before I mute my microphone for even more sirens, I will just remind everyone, Karl Marx predicted all of this.
It's true. Yeah, so and one last thing, I'm going to pull this up. It is, people do use it for that. But again, to circle back to, this is a copyright theft machine, and an IP theft machine. You don't own your character art. Like, if I buy a commission from an artist, I have a deal with that artist where I own that art. I bought that from them. If I have an AI make it, that's not mine. No creativity went into that. That's just, you farted it out off the internet.
Yeah.
And not only that, so anyone can use it then. It's not yours. You've denied a human art, the ability to make art, right? You haven't gotten art.
I'll just point out, as a dungeon master of many, many years, every D&D group I have ever run games for, without exception, has had an artist in it.
In them, yeah. There's always an artist.
So if you want a good portrait of your character, just talk to the person in your group who already does, makes art out of all this anyway.
And like,
even maybe pay them like $5 or buy them a sandwich or something to compensate them for their labor. Excuse me.
Right. Take care of your party.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is, I'm starting to fade here on the AI topic, because I could go on about it in all sorts of niche details, and I have all sorts of notes. But yeah, it's a
Elon pose and say we can move on now.
Because you're the head of the cabinet, right? You're the shadow president.
Mm-hmm. I am not Dane's handler.
You are not Dane's handler.
Yeah. But well, I think we got the point. The point is, all this, like, capitalists right now are in a competition to see whose company dies with the most toys when it comes to AI. Because as the technology stands right now, there is no singularity coming. We're not going to get Skynet, or not this way anyway.
No.
We're not. If something like, the way I understand what you said and what I draw from it is that if anything like genuine AI emerges, it will not be because we did it on purpose. We can't force it to happen based on the tech level we're at right now.
Based on the technology we have, it cannot be achieved. You would need to change fundamentally how we code machines to do that. And this is where things like quantum computing have been hypothesized to be a vector for that. And I don't know how real that is, but quantum computing has remained one of those, like, sort of like machine learning used to be, where it's this cool niche thing that does a lot of interesting science things, but is not broadly applicable to the market.
Yeah.
It's very cool to learn about and very cool to study. I don't understand a quarter of it. But I'm dumb, so that's fine. It's just neat. It doesn't have to redefine the world right away. And I think that's what this is that machine learning was repackaged as AI because it kind of looks like the future. If the future was your drunk hallucinating ex-girlfriend.
Right. And all of this is happening because capitalists in this country anyway have stopped making things.
Yes, they've stopped making things.
Or I should say they've stopped exploiting labor to make things. Now, and they understand that their success depends on labor.
Right.
But they have reached the point where they can make things or they can make money, they think, without needing labor. So they're trying to create vectors of income for themselves that don't rely on us doing what we've always done. They want to eliminate us from the equation.
Right. And they're using an infrastructure that was pre-existing, that was based on selling things that don't exactly work, to sell things that definitely don't work. And like, this is why when I bring up the example of Google says it's, Gemini is, or not Gemini. Yeah, Gemini is Google. Is like 90% effective. And that sounds like a nice number, right? If you can show that to your investors and go, this gives out accurate results 90% of the time. How many people search Google in a day?
Billions? I don't know.
Yeah, there's probably trillions of Google searches a day. How many? I'm going to look this up. And it's lower now because less people are using Google. Google searches per day. And we're searching DuckDuckGo.
Excellent. That's what I use too.
All right. So 8.5 billion Google searches are made every day.
That's less than I
my
thought.
Calculator. So 8.5 times 0.1. So that's 850 million hallucinations a day. I want you all to think about that, right? Like at 90% effective, 850 million hallucinations a day. That is a product that they are forcing on you because you can't turn Gemini off on Google search anymore.
Yeah, that's the most infuriating thing to me is that we are being forced to accept this.
It's worse than just a Google search.
Yeah.
Even though now SEO, search engine optimization, is based on AI results. So now before it was like, oh, if it's not on the first page of Google, it's worthless. Now like a valid piece of information is on the third page of Google because everything before that is just AI slop.
And ads.
Yeah.
Which is why I use DuckDuckGo. It's not totally immune to that sort of stuff, but it gets around most of it. Yeah. I use DuckDuckGo as my default web browser as well, and email.
Nice. I use Firefox for my browser. Though that has to change now too because they changed their user data sales policies, so we're gonna have to probably switch to DuckDuckGo. Imagining.
Well, DuckDuckGo's I'm on the web browser for DuckDuckGo right now, and it's pretty robust. It's come a long way in the last couple of years.
Nice. Yeah, it's a thing referred to as enshittification, where what happens is that with web applications, Google search, social media platforms, especially algorithm-driven ones like Facebook and Twitter, you are not the customer. You are the product.
Yep.
You are the thing that Google sells. Their job is to keep you using Google. It benefits them to make search worse. Because if it's worse, you're going to use it more. Because, if I search, how to make pancakes, and it comes up with how to make a cake in a pan. Well, that's not what I want. So now I have to search again, how to make breakfast pancakes. and then it comes up with the right thing. Well, now I've seen 2 sets of advertisements. They can charge the real customers. They can now they can charge that real customer more for the ad buy.
Yep. This is why one of the best policy proposals I've heard so far about how to deal with this is I forget the name, what the policy would be called, but basically it is giving control of our data to us, so that companies who mine our data have to
pay us,
like legally. They would have to pay us a certain number, like a penny or something, every single time they used a piece of our data without our consent.
Right.
Which would be basically universal basic income for all of us.
It would be. And given, I mean, okay, so to be real, to bring it back to Elon Musk and co., because all of our personal data was already stolen last month by the Trump administration and Elon Musk's flying Nazi monkeys, this is probably the only way to make that situation anything close to remunerated.
Yeah.
Because the data's already been stolen. All of your data, all of your tax data, all of your social security data, all of your private information has already been stolen by Elon Musk. Sorry.
And we're never getting it back.
And we're never getting it back. That is now out of the bottle. The door is open. It cannot be closed. The way to make that right is to go, if you use it, you pay. If you send someone an ad in the mail, you pay them. And then, that
not just if you send me an ad in the mail. If you are mining my data, which you obviously are, I have to be paid a certain dividend, if you want to think in stock terms, investment terms, every single month or every 2 weeks, whatever.
Every month.
For the use of that data. And if I don't want you to use it, if I would rather forego receiving the free money,
you should
then
do that.
I can put in place legal barriers preventing you from taking my data without my consent. A model we will never get now, I think, but I mean that was the only thing I liked about Andrew Yang. His proposal for paying for universal basic income was partially that, like taxing every single time a robot takes your data, it has to pay you like a penny or something like that.
Right.
But
because that adds up fast.
Yeah, it does. If you've watched Office Space, you know that.
It's it really is something that I think if we're going to recover from this, will have to be done. I don't think there's a way around it. Especially because I don't foresee us getting Social Security back. I don't see Medicaid coming back. I don't know how much of Medicare we'll lose, but I imagine a lot of that is going to go away too.
Medicare will be privatized and Social Security as well. They want to, again, because they don't make products anymore.
Right.
I guess they've reached I don't know if we've reached a technological dead end or not, but American capital is not actually making things anymore.
No.
But they still operate under the ideology of the cancer cell, which means eternal growth. Line must always go up. So they have to look for other things they can commodify.
Right.
Which is going to be our existence and our health and stuff like that we have previously paid for through, however meagerly, through things like Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. So all of that, they want to privatize it and turn it into make it work like private insurance, even though it's money we have already paid.
We've already paid,
yeah. Anyway, it's enough to make you want to burn things down.
Yeah, it really is. So call especially if you live in a red district, if you have a Republican congressperson or senator, fucking call them every fucking day. The budget reconciliation bill has moved to the Senate. So call your senator and say, hey, don't vote for this.
And if there's a town hall meeting, go to it and be loud.
Yeah.
start a chant in the crowd because the crowd will pick it up.
Yeah, because here's the thing. We talk about how like boomers are Republicans, Gen Xers are often Republicans. Those are people who are drawing from Social Security and Medicare.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They depend on it. They can now here at the end maybe make themselves useful to society. Yeah, and if your town hall isn't canceled, call and ask, like, call their local office, call the congressional switchboard, and just put in like, hey, why'd you cancel? I was really looking forward to seeing you,
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you voted. Because if you voted, they don't know who you voted for, but they know you voted.
Yeah.
And that figures into their math that like, oh God, my voters are going to murder me. And they're having security arrest voters who are protesting at their town halls, like that happened in Idaho. Happened somewhere else last week as well. I don't remember where. But yeah.
So let's do some fun stuff. Do we have time to do some fun stuff?
Let's do some fun stuff.
Okay. You wanted to talk about a piece of a video that I responded to.
Yes. So unfortunately, I can't make it play noise. I wonder if you can make it play noise.
I'll see if I can do it. Let me share the screen here.
All right. You share the screen and maybe I can get you to play noise.
Yeah. So let's see. All right.
All right. It's the fun half. I'm taking off clothes. So.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we're getting naked.
No. Okay, that's apparently not working. Let's try this. All right.
All right. I'm going to add stage.
All right. So you can see that, right?
I can see it.
All right. Let's see if you can hear it.
I cannot hear it.
Okay.
Oh, it's really quiet. I think it's coming through on your microphone.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Let's do some closed captioning.
Oh, there we go. We'll just use the auto captions. Yeah, that'll help.
Yeah.
So everyone's going to read along, or we'll do a dramatic reading.
Yeah. So for context, earlier this week, I did a like 100 or an 80-minute response video, a reaction video to the video we're looking at right now by a channel called The Broken Sword. And the video is called Why You Should Respect Canon. And my response video was, nah, Canon's bullshit.
Miss me with that, bro.
Yeah, it's authoritarian bullshit that's trying to force all future generations to conform to the arbitrary preferences of a long dead generation. You can go watch my video for full context. But Morgan spotted a bit in this video by The Broken Sword that is not about the Lord of the Rings. It's about Star Wars. So we can read along and maybe other people will be able to hear it. Or I could move my speaker up closer to my microphone. It might come
that
through
might
that.
work. That might work.
Let me see it.
All right. Fuck it. We'll do it live.
Fuck it. We're doing it live. All right. Let's see if you hear this. How does this sound? How did that sound?
I didn't hear a thing.
You didn't? Okay.
No.
Weird. Let me turn it up a little bit.
It's really choppy.
All right. Then I'll put the speaker away and we'll just do a dramatic reading.
All right. Bob, if you could do the dramatic reading, I've been talking a bunch. I want to rest my voice for a minute.
Okay. So I just clipped this. This is not the entire video. I made a clip for the 1 minute portion that Morgan wanted to respond to. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts by saying, for reinvention's sake, or at least that's how it always comes across. Just over the past decade, we've seen a repeated pattern of franchises handled by creatives who either misunderstand or actively disrespect the source material. There is potentially an argument that the standard of writers in Hollywood is nowhere near what it was 20 years ago. But that is an argument for another day. I mean, let's look at a few very quickly. An obvious one is Star Wars. The Disney sequel trilogy completely undermined what came before Luke Skywalker's character. It turned him into a bitter hermit who abandoned the Jedi Order, something that was never even considerable before the films, just discarding established world building of the expanded universe, replacing it with vague, shallow storytelling instead of a meaningful continuation of Return of the Jedi. The sequels felt like a reboot disguised as a sequel, tearing down the old characters. Oh, that's where it ends. It felt like a reboot, tearing down the old characters. So we've got hates the source material, turned Luke into a bitter hermit who abandoned the Jedi Order. There's no precedent for this in the lore. They hate the expanded universe, which was obviously canon. And the sequels feel like a reboot disguised as an attempt to tear down the original, the old lore and the old characters. So it's the old.
Okay, so let's start at the top. All right. J.J. Abrams, like I would like anyone who thinks J.J. Abrams hates Star Wars, and I hate J.J. Abrams. I call him the jellyfish because I believe he has no spine and no brain. I don't hate him. I think he's a mediocre director who can't do a sequel to save his soul. But if you go back and listen to the things he interviews with him when he was directing Star Trek in 2009, and all the things he loved about Star Wars and all the things he talked about Star Wars, and that he kind of saw doing Star Trek as an audition to do a Star Wars movie. Mm-hmm. Motherfucker didn't hate Star Wars. He wasn't trying to tear down Star Wars. He's fucking obsessed with it. He's a fanboy. And that's kind of why he sucked at it.
Yeah.
Because what The Force Awakens is it is a greatest hits collection of the original trilogy. And yes, it is a very fun watch. I love The Force Awakens. I can even tell you my favorite scene is when they're the stormtroopers are attacking the bar, and then the X-Wings show up and start murdering all the TIE fighters and blowing up stormtroopers. I fucking love that scene to death.
Right into my veins.
Right into my veins. Just give it to me. But it's a remake, and that's fine. That's fine. As far as a shallow movie tearing down what's been established before and just being absolutely worthless, that's what you guys asked for. That's the Rise of Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
That's the please release my wife and kids letter that came out in theaters in 2019. That's what you wanted.
People forget this. Disney, the only time Disney blinked in the face of fake fan outrage was after The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
They were so scared of the fan backlash that they scrapped their original plan for Episode 9 and went and made a movie that basically was retconning in all of the shit that angry fans were angry about.
Right. It is a comic book movie. It is an adaptation of the Dark Empire comic book released by Dark Horse in the 90s. It is not a very good comic book. Mm-hmm. It is one of those, when the EU was canceled. I love the EU. I was literally re-listening to one of the EU books last night when I was going to bed. I have a bunch of them on my phone. I love them to death. Dark Empire was one of my two examples of the EU was great, but we also had Dark Empire and Han Solo's evil twin cousin. And then they went and made Dark Empire the movie, and it sucked because Dark Empire as a story sucked. It wasn't a good story. As for ignoring the EU, I mean, they told us they were doing that because that wasn't part of George's canon. And to tell new stories, the EU was only coherent if you didn't look at it too closely. There's a lot of things that didn't add up. Books that take place in the same time contradict each other. Kevin J. Anderson's Jedi Academy trilogy and Michael Stackpole's I, Jedi take place at the same time, often in the same place, and events happen differently. And that's fine. They're both varying degrees of good. I prefer I, Jedi, but I like Stackpole more than I like Anderson. If you're an Anderson guy, you might like the Jedi Academy trilogy more. And that's all well and good, because back then we shared Star Wars. We hated it, but we loved it. Because part of being a Star Wars fan has always been hating Star Wars. That's one of the core values of being a Star Wars fan, is there's some part of Star Wars you fucking hate. Going back to Empire Strikes Back, we've covered that on the channel before. There were fan letters upset about Empire Strikes Back, now seen as a cinematic masterpiece. So here we all are. Second, with regards to the canon versus EU thing, if you're disregarding the EU, no matter what you think about that, right? I get being upset they're disregarding the EU. Sure, fine, whatever. But they're going to do it, right? So they're going to tell a story where the only things that have happened are the prequels, the original trilogy, Clone Wars, and Rebels. That's it. That is all of Star Wars now. Okay. Where do we leave off with Luke Skywalker? Like, what is the big thing that happens to him the last time we see him? We see him maul his father with a lightsaber until he has a moment of realization that he is going to fall to the dark side, that he is moments away from doing it, and he catches himself in the last possible moment. And his father is redeemed by this and saves his life. Luke is not the one who defeats the Emperor. It's Vader. Luke helped redeem Vader so Vader could defeat the Emperor. And this follows.
I would argue that means Luke defeated the Emperor, but that's splitting hairs.
That's splitting hairs. But we see that Luke is not an infallible superhero. He is a person who can have a crisis of faith, who can allow his emotions to overcome his values. That is fundamental to his character, and his greatest triumph is that he can overcome those moments, but he still has them.
Mm-hmm.
When we see him in The Last Jedi, and throughout the course of that story, through the Rashomon sequences where we see his and Kylo's version of their falling out, Luke had another one of those moments, only it didn't go his way that time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you
made the Rashomon comparison, because I think it's worth reminding people who are still stuck on The Last Jedi that there were 3 versions of that flashback. There was Kylo Ren's point of view, there was Luke's point of view, and then there was the truth.
Right. And those are 3 different versions of that story. For those who don't know, Rashomon is a Japanese movie about a murder wherein 3 different people have 3 different versions of what happened, and then there is the truth.
Right.
And they are 3 almost unrelated stories. So, the Luke Skywalker we see in The Last Jedi follows the Luke Skywalker we see in Return of the Jedi, as someone who tries to do the right thing, but can fail, can make the wrong call. And throughout the original trilogy, we see him make the wrong call all the time. We see him also make the right call, and we see him do both of those things in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And not just his big heroic moment at the end, but even like showing Rey how to touch the Force. Even trying to like warn Rey off, like, oh, the dark side cave, you can touch that too easily. You got to get control of yourself. Like he is trying to do the right thing throughout, but he's a fallible human being. And that is sort of the difference between him and Yoda, because he's very much the Yoda character of those movies. Yoda is kind of infallible in Empire Strikes Back. Now, the prequels and the Clone Wars make him very fallible. And I think that's why the sort of fallible Luke Skywalker mentor makes a little more sense if we had just had the original trilogy. But
Right.
the Luke Skywalker we see in between the trilogies is a coherent character. It's not trying to ruin Luke Skywalker's character. It is showing the continuation of someone who can fail and can rise above their failure.
Right. And that ties into the theme of The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi is a movie about failure.
Right. Everyone in that movie fails.
Yeah. And it's also I'll tell you exactly how this version of Luke came to be. I can't confirm this, but I know enough about how screenwriting works to know that they started with a directive or a vision or something from the director or the people running the creative team, that because The Last Jedi was going to be the Empire Strikes Back of this new trilogy, they needed Luke to be the Yoda of this story. Mm-hmm. So they started with Luke is the grizzled mentor for the young Jedi who needs to learn a lesson. How do we work backward from this into the lore we've already established from the first movies, ignoring the EU, because whether you believe canon is valid or not, which I don't, I think canon is a bullshit idea.
Yeah, I think canon is a lie to sell Big Wiki.
Yeah, there is a significant portion of the audience who cares about that. So you have to find a way to satisfy at least some of them with what you've done. But they started with figuring out what story they wanted to tell first, which is what you should always do. And then they worked backwards into seeing how much of the original lore they could fit into the new vision of the character. Right. And with Luke, I think they did a great job. I mean, I think
so too.
The whole, when he throws the lightsaber away, that's a direct callback to how he won in Return of the Jedi. He refused to fight.
Right. Yeah. It's exactly what it is. It is like, that was the most, up until that point, throwing away the lightsaber is the most Jedi thing we had seen a character do.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we take the sequels, or if we take the prequels and the original trilogy as a total story, and we can discuss whether or not you should do that. But if we're going to, Luke Skywalker is the culmination of the Jedi who have done nothing but fail for 6 movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to pull this up because I want to talk about this too. Yeah, this is kind of where we get this, like, why isn't Luke a superhero thing? Because in a lot of the expanded universe, especially as we moved out of the Bantam era into the Del Rey era with New Jedi Order, Luke became a superhero. At the end of the New Jedi Order books, and those last few books, I describe him as a Dynasty Warriors character. Because it's like, oh, there's like a troop of Yuzhin Vong who at the beginning of that series are immune to force powers and can't be sent to the force, and their armor is lightsaber resistant and yada, yada, yada. They're unkillable super people, ba, 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 ba. He's cutting them down by the squadron. He's blasting them with force lightning, which is not causing him to fall to the dark side because he's so in tune with the force right now. That's not Luke Skywalker. That's a video game character. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. That's not even the Luke Skywalker of other parts of the EU. That's just, and then he sort of remains that character for a long time in the EU, and the EU is worse for it. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people talk about the stories after New Jedi Order. No one talks about the Swarm War trilogy with any fondness, because it wasn't very good. Because the original trilogy characters could not die. And they became sort of textureless superheroes. And the sequel trilogy, to its credit, didn't go that way. Because we had seen that version of these characters before, and we knew where it ended up, and that was diminishing sales.
Right. And I would just say, if you cannot look at the version of Luke we get in The Last Jedi and see how that version of the character grew out of what we were left with at Return of the Jedi, then you just weren't paying attention to either movie.
Right.
Because it's perfect. That's why they gave you him throwing the lightsaber away. It was to call back, to remind you that he basically won by refusing to fight. And what's he been doing for the last 30 years? Refusing to get involved.
Yeah. Is that he was ashamed of what he almost did.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, the last thing that won me this war was refusing to fight. I'm
Right.
going to refuse to fight again.
And it's not just that he was ashamed of what he did. It's just it's also that was within the context of the Star Wars universe.
Right.
That was the morally correct choice.
Yeah.
That was the light side choice, because you're not supposed to be. Violence should always be the last resort. You're not going to be solving many problems by throwing force lightning at everybody. And, that's the path of the dark side. So he was trying to embody that aspect of the light side of like eschewing violence altogether.
Right. And we see the ultimate culmination of that in Star Wars in The Last Jedi with his appearance on Crate at the end, where he wins a battle without hurting anyone.
Yep.
No one dies by his hand, and he single-handedly wins that battle. That's the power of a Jedi.
From across the galaxy, by the way. He reached out across the entire galaxy.
Yep.
Millions of light years he stretched across.
Yep.
To do that.
And that, like, it's one of those things that, like, when I came out of the movie and saw people were upset about it, I'm like, no, that was fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most Jedi thing I've ever seen.
I genuinely think a lot of people went into the new trilogy hoping it would just be 3 old people.
Yeah.
Running around doing all these action stunts and things. Like, they're not, I mean, I will concede that I hoped, and I think one of the mistakes of the new trilogy was not giving us at least one scene where Luke, Leia, and Han were all together.
Yeah.
I think that's all people really wanted at the end of the day.
I think so.
It was like a passing of the torch moment or something.
Yeah.
And they should have done that.
I agree.
But they didn't.
They didn't.
And we're stuck with that.
I would even think, like, and because, like, the closest we get is, like, you have the Rebels minus Rey there when Leia meets Luke and shows up with the dice and gives as the Force apparition. And so you almost have that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But also there was no way Harrison Ford was coming back for more than one movie.
Yeah. Fun fact, Harrison Ford hates Star Wars.
Yeah, Harrison Ford hates Star Wars.
He was just here for the paycheck. That's it.
He was here for the paycheck and convinced them to do another Indiana Jones movie because he does like Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Though, to be fair, since he was in it just for the paycheck, they could have still done a reunion scene with all 3 of them in the first movie. Somehow.
Yeah, they could have.
But it's water under the bridge. There's nothing we can do about it now.
Especially now that Carrie Fisher is dead.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the, another reason why The Rise of Skywalker is so fucked up is that they absolutely abused her fucking corpse in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because they just used cut footage from The Force Awakens, which to use that footage, they had to undo a bunch of Rey's character development.
Yeah.
And
I agree, Matthew Gibbons. I think it does work, but it's the fact that it works narratively doesn't mean that that's what the audience wanted.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that if they had to do it over again, I think that they would find a way to give the audience a reunion scene between the 3 core characters of the original trilogy and still tell the story they told.
Yeah.
Overall. But yeah, I mean, it baffles me that people are still stuck on The Last Jedi.
Stuck on
How many
it,
years has it been?
God's 8 years. 2017.
See, it came out in 2019, right?
2017. 2019 was The Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, so 9.
Right. Okay, so that's been like 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get over it, folks.
Yeah, it's... And also Lucasfilm, hey, get over it. Make another fucking Star Wars movie. Because here's the other part of this. That I don't think that fans like Broken Sword. And I believe Broken Sword's a fan. I disagree with him, but I think he's a fan. Don't seem to understand necessarily that these movies were hugely successful.
Yeah.
Billion-dollar movies. Lucasfilm should put another Star Wars movie. And because they can't use any of the old characters, they have to give us something new. And that gives us all a fresh starting point. And I think that's the reason we've been talking about Last Jedi for the last 8 years, is because nobody likes Rise of Skywalker. Not nobody. I know people who like
I've seen some people who genuinely love it.
Yeah, I know some people who do as well. But I think that there is definitely a negative air over it in sort of a black spot next to its name. But I think starting over fresh, giving us a fresh chance as fans to see what Star Wars can be when it is divorced from our nostalgia completely will be a good thing. Yeah, they're planning a Rey movie. They're planning a Dawn of the Jedi movie, but they've planned a bunch of movies. I will believe we are getting a Star Wars movie when I buy a ticket and sit down to see Star Wars, and not a moment sooner.
I'll believe
if a
it
trailer
before that
comes out, I'd be like, maybe we'll see that movie one day. That could come out, but not until that. Like I am like I've got my old fashioned in my hand and I'm going into the theater to see it. Will I believe that I'm watching a Star Wars movie?
Yeah. And it's time to move beyond the Skywalker bit anyway, because Star Wars is much, much bigger. And I wish they would stop going back to the well of the time between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Or before that. Like, because I want to see what happens after this. Like, what systems of government arise after the fall of the Empire? Maybe there's like a corporate conglomerate in one part of the galaxy and a communist state in another, and an anarchist confederation in another. There's so much more interesting things you could do. And all of them have their different interpretations of the Force and stuff. You open it up to so much more narrative potential by getting away from the whole idea that every movie has to rhyme with the original trilogy.
Right. Well, it can rhyme without playing the same song.
Yeah.
It is you can hit those same beats, but change the notes.
Yeah.
Because like you could tell a story where there is no Empire. Don't even bother. Or one like the Star Wars Visions, the animated series from a bunch of Japanese creators that came out several years ago. The Ronin short actually had a novel that expands that universe. And there is no Republic, there is the Empire, and it is ruled by the Jedi, who are the samurai class. And the Sith were a failed rebellion to overthrow the Jedi Masters. And you could tell that kind of Star Wars story in a universe after the original trilogy, after the sequel trilogy, where just like things took a turn.
Yeah. Or the thing RXND is pointing to in the chat, which I've also noticed, the scenes the scenes scattered through the Mando series and in Solo and maybe a couple of other places, that like Mando season 3, I want to say, where they have the bar.
Yeah.
Is it Mando where they have the bar that's all droids?
I did not watch Mandalorian season 3, so that's probably where it is, because I don't recognize that.
It basically establishes for certain that droids have their own society and are like sentient beings.
Yeah.
Not just machines, which means they're all slaves.
Right.
So, like, the Jedi should do something about that, right?
They should.
There's a story that would be totally grounded in decades of Star Wars lore that has nothing to do with the Empire versus Republic or Jedi versus Sith or Skywalker Destiny storylines, but would still be distinctly Star Wars.
Yeah. Right?
Show me that movie.
Yeah. Show me what it looks like when the Jedi fight the Republic. Like, because this is one of the things that they sort of touch on in the prequel trilogy, is that the Jedi's values and the Republic's values are not the same thing, but the
Mhm.
Jedi are subservient to the Republic, and so they will concede their values at the request of the Republic
Mhm.
and do things like allow and engage in slavery, because we see throughout the prequel trilogy the Order owns droids that they are not particularly careful with, because the only person we see that gives any attention and humanization to droids is Anakin in the original trilogy, or in the prequel
Mhm.
trilogy. He's the only character who treats droids like they're people. Even after he's gone bananas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
obviously
also
the clone
worth,
troopers are that is an army of conscripted slaves.
yeah. It's also worth reminding us again, all of us, that one of the running themes in Star Wars is that the Jedi are not that great.
No, they kind of fail all the time.
They have like their moral philosophy about, or their philosophy about purging yourself of all connections is kind of sociopathic.
It's self-destructive.
Yeah, it's self-destructive, and it's part. And I've always thought that one of the themes there is that they started with a good idea,
Mm-hmm.
but after like centuries of access to institutional power, they're not really much better than the Sith themselves, because they're all flawed people trying to live up to an impossible ideal
standard,
rather than grounding their morality in what they're actually capable of, and that leads to a lot of the problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it's funny because the Old Republic MMO kind of plays with that, because you can play a light side Sith or a dark side Jedi and still be part of your respective factions. And often the light side Sith, if you're engaging in a story moment with a Jedi NPC, you can like drive them insane by pointing out the contradictions. Like, boy, you're getting angry and having a hard time controlling that. And the more you deny it, the more I'm getting under your skin. And you really should just walk away before you lose control and I slice you in half. And then the lights, or the dark side Jedi, kind of ends up a sociopath where you're just like, I am in control and I must be in control of everything, because that's how I know I'm in control, is because I bend everything to my will, because I am in control of everything.
Yeah.
They become obsessive. And then fall to the dark side.
Yeah.
Because the Jedi and the Sith are philosophies. They are not a guaranteed surefire path to one side or the other, much as they sell themselves that way.
Yeah.
Because they're institutions, and institutions tend to be fuck ups.
Yes. So anyway, the takeaway point, I think, my takeaway point from responding to the Broken Swords video, which is mostly about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And how much he hates Rings of Power. Is that this obsession with canon among fans, that, you know, the idea that you can't really make a good adaptation of the source material unless you do exactly what the source material did, and any deviation from it is because you hate the source material or you hate the creator of the source material, is just reactionary.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that like diving deep into the canon or the lore is not a valid way to engage with the source material, because it absolutely is. Guys, like, people, like, my default mode with Lord of the Rings is obsessing over all the lore details, right? But I recognize that, as Tolkien himself said, everything is part of the same cauldron of story, and ultimately all stories end up getting recycled into that cauldron so that other minds and hands, as he put it, so future generations will retell these stories or take elements from the original source material and build a new story that is relevant to them and their times. And that is the way storytelling has always worked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people who want, like the idea that the changes we see to Luke Skywalker in the sequel trilogy, or the things we see being done in the Rings of Power was done because the creators of those properties think they can do better than the originator and they think they're smarter and they want to teach us all a lesson. That's a toxic narrative. They're doing it because there are legal constraints for adaptation, and corporate mandates to make it as profitable as possible. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all that's happening. They're not trying to craft a new morality or undermine the philosophy of the original creator, or working out of disrespect or trashing the lore because they hate it.
Right.
They're just trying to tell a new story with properties they love in a way that will make their corporate masters happy.
Right.
And their corporate masters only care about money, not wokeness, not DEI. They don't care about it. As we've seen, they're willing to toss DEI out the window the instant it becomes a threat to their profits. So,
and the other thing is that, sort of an aside on the whole, like, telling new stories and canonicity, canon changes. Canon changes it literally book to book in terms of Lord of the Rings, right? They add new things. Hobbit has different things than Lord of the Rings. It changes things, or vice versa. Same thing with Star Wars, right? Luke and Leia being siblings is not canon to Just a New Hope.
Yeah.
That is a change they made, and that Lucas made in Empire Strikes Back.
Really.
Yeah. And possibly into the making of Empire Strikes Back. And it's one we all kind of agree is a good change, but that is changing canon, and that's fine. Canon is not consistent, and that's okay. We're not a cult.
I want to highlight a comment Neon Zephyr made.
Sure.
In an ideal world.
Oh, in an ideal world.
Yeah, in an ideal world, we would get lore accurate adaptations all the time. No, hard disagree.
No, I actually disagree.
Hard disagree. The demand that everything be lore accurate all the time is the problem.
Right. So
that is the authoritarian constraint on creativity and art that we should be moving beyond, because it is not the way storytelling has ever worked.
No.
Canon is a modern capitalist idea by and large.
Well, it's a religious idea that capitalism has exploited, but
yeah, well, that capitalism has transposed into creative storytelling, into fandom and stuff.
Right.
It was done to commodify stories.
Yeah.
And create IP and create control over particular universes. What we should, in an ideal world, we would be doing something similar to what we've always done, which is retelling old stories and retconning the hell out of everything to make it more relevant to our current concerns.
Mm-hmm.
And future generations will continue doing the same thing. You know, I said in my video, I'm sure there were Greek myth lore nerds in ancient Rome who hated Virgil's The Aeneid,
right,
because it trashed the reputation of the hero Odysseus,
right,
and retconned the lore of the Trojan War.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure in Shakespeare's day there were Norse history nerds who hated the fact that Shakespeare completely trashed the lore of Hamlet, right? But that's just the way storytelling has always worked, and that's the way it should always work.
I want to talk to this one quick. The MCU is made up of stories that are not remotely comics accurate, and that is to its benefit. Because for every really, really good story in a franchise, whether it's Marvel or Star Wars or Star Trek, there are dozens of absolutely mediocre to terrible stories. So fuck them. Tell your own story. We all like the reason these characters matter is that we recognize them.
Yeah.
And that we empathize with their past stories. The new stories have to change the lore of what came before. Because otherwise, how do you tell a new story?
Yeah,
what does a lore accurate Empire Strikes Back look like if it has to be 100% accurate to A New Hope? and I'm genuinely asking that question. I don't know what that movie looks like. Because like Darth Vader's role in the Empire isn't established until Empire Strikes Back. Because in A New Hope, he's kind of subservient to Tarkin.
Yeah.
The relationship between Leia and Luke is established in Empire. That Han Solo has a bounty on his head is established in Empire.
Yeah. Empire did a lot of heavy lifting in terms of establishing the so-called lore of Star Wars.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize that there was no plan.
There was never a plan. Yeah. There was an outline. There was notions of a plan, but there was no plan.
Yeah. In fact, I think Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the novel, is based on what the original plan for a Star Wars sequel was.
Mm-hmm. Notably, not canon in either the canon universe or the EU.
Yeah.
Because it contradicts both of them a whole bunch. I believe that is where we got the term Kyber crystal from. But the Kyber crystal in that is a singular artifact and not the type of crystal in lightsabers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like
fuck your canon. That's the takeaway. Fuck your canon.
Fuck your canon. Canon is a lie by Big Wiki to sell more ads.
Yeah. I do agree in the art of adaptation that you should like lore accuracy should be on the list of things to consider when telling your story, but it should be near the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
What comes first is plot, character, like story or narrative structure, theme. All of that comes first. And if there's a contradiction between those things and the lore, you change the lore, not the other things. Yeah. Lore is just a tool to facilitate all of those other aspects of storytelling.
Right. A great example within the EU, because I know these people like to pretend like they know what the EU is all about. The members of Rogue Squadron changes appearance to appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's never explained in detail why like the pilots are now different. Now sometimes we see a character die on screen, sometimes we don't. But the roster is different almost every time we see them, outside of like some books that follow directly one after the other. It doesn't matter. Those are just the characters in Rogue Squadron this time.
Yeah.
What matters is those are the characters of this story, and they belong to Rogue Squadron. Who belonged to Rogue Squadron in a prior book probably doesn't matter as much. And the one after that doesn't matter either. Like, you're probably going to have some recurring characters like your Wedge Antilles and stuff, because he's kind of the main character. Well, not really. It's interesting that we think of Wedge Antilles as the main character of Rogue Squadron when it's really Corran Horn is the point of view character. Wedge Antilles is just the leader. Yeah. From the people who brought you the 5 deaths of Shakti now bring you the 8 deaths of Spider-Man. Because Shakti dies differently in different cuts of Revenge of the Sith. She dies in a video game and a book and a comic book, I think. Just in the EU. And then dies differently in the canon. And that affects the quality of the EU 0%. And I enjoy, I think, a full third of those deaths. Because in The Force Awakens, you feed her to a Sarlacc pit because you're a bad guy in The Force Awakens. It's a good time. If you have not played The Force Awakens, it is a PlayStation 2 that is like the Jedi Survivor games that EA put out in the last couple of years, only if they were on like cocaine. A lot of cocaine, like a John Belushi amount of cocaine. That is The Force Awakens. It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, she dies in Lego Star Wars? Well, that is the definitive death.
That's right the definitive version.
With the true canon of Star Wars. We found
the canon. Yeah. Lego Star Wars is the only canon that matters now, guys. We're sticking to it. That's our story.
Yeah. And mostly I would just want people to be suspicious when they hear content creators saying that such and such adaptation happened because the people adapting it hate the source material.
They don't.
No
one does that.
That's a political narrative being inserted into the fandom.
No one tells especially in these big fandoms, right? No one tells a story because they hate it.
Yeah.
Especially knowing that your corporate overlords are going to abandon you to absolute bullshit. And leave you high and dry. You do it out of love. The paycheck's probably pretty good, and it may even be fun to make, which is why like Harrison Ford did the Captain America movie recently, is because he had heard from other friends of his who had worked in Marvel movies before that they're a ton of fun. And he's like, I would love to have a ton of fun. I am old and could stand to have some fun. And so he went and had a ton of fun.
Also that they treat their talent really well, from what I've been told.
Yeah. Because it's a sort of franchise.
He was having fun in that movie. If you've seen Cap 4, Harrison Ford is one of the best things in it, because you can tell he was enjoying the hell out of that. Especially there's a particular scene that's a flashback with no dialogue, just physical acting with him, because there's a voiceover.
Sure.
I
said, interesting.
Yeah. It's a flashback of Thunderbolt Ross before he was president.
Sure.
With the mustache doing something. And like the physical acting wise, Harrison Ford just acts the hell out of that scene. And you can tell he loved it.
Because he's such an emotive actor. That's fantastic. Yeah. I had time to see a movie this weekend, and I was gonna see Cap, and then I found out the new Gundam series was having its first 3 episodes debut theatrically. So me and a friend went to see that instead. It was a good time.
I watched last night. I watched the movie Conclave.
I've not heard of this.
Oh, it's up for an Academy Award, which is why I watched it. It's a Ralph Fiennes movie about the election of a new pope. It's like a political suspense thriller.
That sounds interesting.
And it's super interesting, but I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it, unless you don't care. But I feel like the surprise ending should have been what the movie was about the whole time, and it wasn't.
I don't normally have time to see movies, so I'll have to catch that like once it's out streaming, because that sounds super interesting.
I believe it's streaming now. That's how I watched it.
Oh, really? Okay, I will have to track that down.
It came out last year. It's in theaters again for award season, but it was out last year.
Nice. Yeah.
It is a slow burn, though. It's a very slow burn, and you have to pay attention.
Yeah, but I like those movies. I just have to have time to watch them. Yeah, the new Gundam show, it takes place in an alternate canon to the original series from the 70s. Mm-hmm. And the first part of the movie shows the divergence, like where it diverges from the timeline. And they use all of the old music from the 70s and all of the 70s character designs. And it's amazing.
Awesome.
Because like they redesigned the robots and stuff with the new animation style for the rest of the show, but everything else is like completely retro. It's beautiful. I enjoyed it. And then the new stuff, once they get into the like, now that it's diverged, what happens 5 years later, was really enjoyable too. But I just hearing the cheesy 70s anime jazz was just like warmed my heart. Yeah.
Nice. Well,
we're
coming up on close to 3 hours, so that's a pretty good run for our first time with Dane in the field.
Yes, with Secret Agent Dane. The sleeper has been activated.
What are the words that they use for the Winter Soldier?
Okay, I'm gonna look that up, and we'll have. Do you want me to read them, or you have to read them because you're not the handler?
I am not Dane's handler. So
should I read them? Because I could be.
Well, you're not Dane's handler either. I know for a fact you're not Dane's handler because I am not Dane's handler.
All right, I will put them in the private chat, and you can put the trigger phrase.
Yeah, I hope Dane was listening or watching and enjoying what we did here.
Yeah.
I am the only person here with a channel. So please check out my channel, Bob of the Old Ways. Subscribe. All that good stuff. Longing, Rusted, Furnace, Daybreak, 17, Benign, 9, Homecoming, 1, Freight Car. Yeah, I put out content like whenever the fuck I feel like it, basically.
Yeah, whenever you feel like it.
I'm not following the algorithm, and I just put out what I want to put out when I want to put it out, and there's no theme anymore. I built my current following mostly on Rings of Power content because I am, as far as I can tell, I am the only Lord of the Rings fan channel that actively defends the show.
You are, as far as I've seen.
There are some who don't attack it and kind of just talk about it neutrally, but I think I'm the only one who defends it. So yeah, check me out. Also subscribe to Actual Fandom.
Yes.
And the FAPcast channel.
Yes,
all the initiative stuff that's down in the doobly-doo down there.
Yes, there's a bunch of cool channels down there. Well, there's one I know that you don't want to promote.
Who's that?
Isn't there another Bob or is he beneath you because he's in the down below so you can promote him?
Well, I feel like it's probably best for me to promote him to keep him in the public eye, so I always know what he's up to.
In case he's not someone's handler
he made the mistake of letting me into his Discord server.
Oh yeah, I have not.
So
join button.
I'm one step closer to just like killing him in his own palace. So the palace coup is coming, Bob Chaos. I'm coming for the throne.
Maybe now that Dane is in the field, we can finally have the Bob v. Bob debate, and I can moderate it.
I don't know what we would debate about, though. I think we agree on almost everything, except whether the other one should exist.
Both of you have to write an essay to convince me why you should exist. And then I will make a poll. I'll make a Twitter poll and have Elon Musk's Twitter followers vote on it. And then kill the winner.
Yeah. Neon Zephyr, I wish more people that defend it would create content. So do I.
That's one of those
I'm surprised
things
more of them don't. I think a lot of them, there were some who started.
Yeah.
Or when the show started, there were some Tolkien channels who not necessarily defended the show because it didn't really need defending at the time. It was just a new thing. But they made content that was positive about it. And they all got their comment sections brigaded by inorganic hate mobs, similar to the kind we described earlier in this stream.
Yeah, literally
that's kind of just were intimidated out of it.
I wonder.
But I don't give a shit what any of you think. So
no, you do not.
I'm immune to that tactic.
I wonder how much the audio podcast space is more amenable to that. Just because it seems like YouTube is full of hate content and podcasting is normally full of more fan content. There's
some Tolkien podcasts who are nuanced about the show. Like I've pointed out before in conversations in my own comment section that if you want to see some valid criticisms of the Rings of Power as a project that are not based on the false premise that Amazon hates the lore or that J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay think they're smarter than Tolkien, go check out podcasts and the scholarly community.
Mm-hmm. The scholarly community is very good source.
A lot of those folks, even the ones who do not like the show, have acknowledged that you can tell the creators of this show love Tolkien, that this is their love letter to Tolkien, and they do know the lore very deeply. See, even the critics of the show concede that, and then they move on to what they don't like about it.
Sure. I will say personally, I am smarter than Tolkien because he is dead, and corpses don't have neurons firing.
Yeah.
But when he was alive, he was probably smarter than me. But right now, I am smarter than him.
And Tolkien was not a flawless writer by any means.
No,
he was just a guy. He's just a dude. He wasn't very good at dialogue, really, and doesn't write women very well. Doesn't really write women at all.
Doesn't write women at all. Writes men. I mean, it depends on the guy, really. Man was a linguist nerd and a world building nerd. If that guy grew up like post D&D, there would be no Lord of the Rings. he would have just been a GM, a really, really good GM.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Tolkien's greatest legacy, in my opinion,
is D&D.
Is creating a safe space or making it respectable in the literary space to do second world building that's that expansive and detailed. Because before he came along, fantasy was very, very vague about its setting. Like the Conan stories were vaguely in the ancient world of Earth, right? But it was never spelled out. And Tolkien created what we think of as fantasy today.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that much more than Lord of the Rings is his actual legacy.
Because that was sort of, in his time, that was the domain of like Asimov.
Yeah.
That wasn't a fantasy thing. That was a sci-fi thing to build out a world. And also Asimov, terrible with dialogue, terrible with women.
Right. Asimov's work was mostly about ideas. And Tolkien's work was science fiction in the sense that he took the world building of science fiction and built it around the science he was specialized in, which is linguistics.
Right.
Which is a science.
It's a science, absolutely.
And he basically demonstrated how language shapes the world. That was one of the big things he was doing there, and creating a world based on how he knew languages evolve and languages spread, and working from that premise rather than starting with the big evil empires and monsters and stuff that was in fantasy fiction before that really was a sea change in fantasy literature. And people arguably have done it better than him since then, like in terms of world building, or at least have equaled him, but they wouldn't be able to do that at all and be successful at it financially had Tolkien not done it first.
He's foundational. He absolutely is. And people
in bad ways as well as good ways.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely for good and for ill.
Yeah.
And the same thing is definitely true of like Hubbard with Dune, which I think is, foundational for a lot of science fiction. There's a lot of bullshit in Hubbard that continues on in sci-fi for no goddamn good reason. Like, why are there messiahs in sci-fi? Stop it. Quit it. Especially because you're missing the point. If you're writing a sci-fi story and you put in a messiah, you are missing the point of Dune.
Right.
Because the Messiah was a mistake. The Messiah was a completely artificially created legend spread by a religion made up by bad people to manipulate others.
Yeah, I'm so glad that the movies lean into that too.
Yeah.
And pretty explicitly. Like they kind of had to hammer it home. And still a lot of people miss the point. Like I saw a lot of discourse around the first movie saying, "Oh, it's another white savior story." No. Well, yes, but not in the way that you mean.
Right.
It is trying to demonstrate that saviors are a bad idea. And the first movie actually has voiceover to the effect of, the Harkonnens are gone. Who will be our next oppressor? Boom. They cut to the Atreides.
Yep.
Right. I can't think of any much more explicit way of making that point than that.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Part of the problem of Dune being foundational is people missing the point of Dune. Or maybe reading too many of the Dune sequels and prequels because the quality is a drop off. And that sort of goes to another lesson of world building. Sometimes less is more.
Yeah, true.
Sometimes maybe don't tell me. Because your answer is going to suck.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, like the way Tolkien did it too. Like all of that stuff he did with world, like building his languages and stuff like that. He didn't put that into the book.
No.
In the sense that he didn't have he had some explainer chapters, but we only know about that stuff because it all came out after he died. Right.
Yeah.
And his family posthumously published all that stuff. But you can see the way he incorporated it into his story without making it the point of the story.
Right. Because like I know, and this is just me as a world builder for my homebrew settings. Like I have a homebrew sci-fi setting that I've run for multiple campaigns. There's lots of things that I'm never gonna work into the game because, like, that's a detail I think is cool or I like, but it doesn't matter to the player's story, and they don't need to know that.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Why should I waste everyone's time putting it in if it doesn't make sense to? Like sometimes just don't answer things. It's fine. If the PCs are if your readers are interested in it, also sometimes the answer is don't tell them anyways, right? Because they're going to have their own ideas of what it is, and let them have that. That's fine.
And sometimes they come up with a better idea than me, and I just
gods, yeah. My last campaign, we had a player who started out as ex-military. He was working as a security guy on the party's spaceship. And they discovered a civilization that was hiding out that had really advanced cloning technology that they used to grow food. They didn't use it to like clone people. They're like, oh, we can grow food this way because it's space and food is hard to come across. And so he took that technology back to Earth to breed bigger chickens so he could start a soft power chicken farm. That is now just
chickens.
What?
How much bigger are the chickens?
They're like Parasaurolophus sized chickens.
Okay.
Because it's a mech setting, so you need mechs to herd the chickens, was why he wanted them that big. And then they use the egg protein to distribute food into space as a soft power thing. And the whole a whole quarter of the game revolved around him setting up his chicken farming network. And I'm gonna let a player have that. Cool. Because I wasn't doing anything at the moment. Let's do that. We can do that for a while, sure.
And it's a cool detail that gets them invested in the game and the story. That they can work on, like in their off time if they want to. Like
and he did
when they're not gaming,
right? And
you can incorporate it into your lore for future games.
I can, and now like the next game that I am writing right now for this setting is 20 years later, and it is what happens when another country is really tired of your country's soft power shtick that your last character did and the consequences of that.
Yeah.
And so
I built a campaign recently in D&D that was premised on a bunch of stuff that a previous party had done in the setting.
Yeah.
And none of those people are in my group anymore.
Yeah.
But the campaign was based on the consequences of things they did.
Right.
Like decades later. And nobody knew that except me.
Yeah.
But it saved me a lot of work, so I appreciate it.
I have one player who's played in all of them. What's funny is the player who played the chicken farmer played in the game because he likes me as a GM. And he's actually one of my favorite GMs. And he likes me as a GM. He played in the game because I was running it. He didn't know a thing about mecha anime, but was like, this cloning shit is super cool and I want to do this thing. And I'm like, fuck it, we're doing that thing. I'll let you tell that story. Let's do it. We're doing it live.
And giant chickens are basically dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs, right?
They are actually dinosaurs in the real world.
Yes.
But giant chickens are
what you think of as dinosaurs.
What you think of as dinosaurs. And what setting is not made better by putting dinosaurs in it?
Right, exactly. And it's dinosaurs being wrangled by giant robots.
Right.
Like you don't have cowboys on horses, you have mecha.
You have mecha on dinosaurs.
What's funny is you talked about the Iliad. So in that game, because part of the theme of that game was the other side of the story. The party's ship's name was the Ulysses, after what Odysseus is named in the Iliad.
Yeah.
Because that was like my initial clue that we're going to tell the other side of this universe's story.
Right.
Because, storytelling. And I played with my lore and my canon, and no one can tell me otherwise.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I guess this is what I learned from being a dungeon master, is be willing to kill your babies.
Always. Oh, God.
This is common writing advice, right? But I think it's advice that a lot of fans, particular types of fans, should take more to heart. I'm not saying that lore nerdery is wrong, because I do it. It's my default state. But I shouldn't insist that other people have to treat my take on the lore as the only possible take. My preferences are not objective. They're not universal. They're probably not even better.
No, they're just your take. They're your
just
understanding.
Mine. And I think so much of what people feel connected, so much of the reason people feel so connected to, quote, lore or canon, is because their take is theirs.
Yeah.
And it feels like someone is taking a part of them away from them when someone goes against that. And they're not. You just need to get over yourself.
Also, one of my advice, if you have those, like, they're changing my lore, they're changing my canon, one of my pieces of advice is go back to that thing you love. Let's say Star Wars, and just rewatch it. And, like, don't just put it on the background because it's a movie you like and can just kind of vibe to in the background. Really sit down and watch it. Yeah. Or if it's a book, reread it. I had an interaction online with Mike Stackpole. One of his Star Wars books is about a disease. It's about a pandemic, basically. And we discussed briefly that this book really hits different after COVID.
Yeah.
Because it like, the last time I read it was probably, it's 2010, 2012, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. But like, reading it in 2022, boy, that book hits really differently in a really good way.
Yeah. But that's what I was going to say. Like, look for new ways to engage with the old media that you love, you know? Yeah. Like, one of the ways that one of the most enriching experiences of my life as a Lord of the Rings fan was learning about queer readings of the primarily of the Sam and Frodo relationship, basically of a couple of others too, and then going back and rereading the entire book with that as my lens and seeing new layers to the story and new themes in the story that Tolkien probably didn't put there on purpose, but they're still there. And it gave me a new way of engaging with the story. And one thing I did last year was reread the book while also listening to the audiobook version by Andy Serkis.
Yeah, just
following
really good,
along word by word as he reads it. You know, so there's always new ways to engage with the media that you love and the canon that is always going to be there, never going to be changed. You can always return to it. Just find new ways to engage with it, and you won't care if somebody's making a movie or a TV show whose choices you don't really like.
Yeah, it's really, there's so many ways to engage with these stories. And you could, especially with something like comics or Star Wars, there's so much of it. You don't have a fresh memory of the last time you watched it.
No, not at all.
Or read it. Go do it again. And just dive in and see what captured your love the first time. Because it's still there, and it's probably not what you think it is.
And it almost certainly will not be. It almost certainly will not be the actual thing that engaged you the first time.
Yeah.
Like, when I first read Jurassic Park, I was like, "Ooh, dinosaurs, cool!"
Right, exactly.
And now I read it and I see like a critique of capitalism. I see a critique of genetic engineering. I see like a Frankenstein theme.
Yeah, very much.
All that's in there, and I missed all that the first time. It was just, ooh, cool dinosaurs. So always returning to the original thing that you loved after a few years of new life experience will bring a new perspective to things that you think you already know backwards and forwards. Like, I can list like not every bit, but tons of trivia about Middle Earth.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean I understand Middle Earth.
No.
You know?
Like, I think one of the things that, like, I know it's not really in the discourse right now, but like back when Castle Turfenstein came out, the Hogwarts game, people discussed, like, because there's a lot of critique of the Harry Potter movies and books, and certain racial storytelling they engaged in. people were like, "Oh, why do you hate it?" Blah 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 blah. It's like the people who wrote those essays and made those videos, almost all of them were huge Harry Potter fans.
Yeah.
Who engaged with it as an adult again and went, "This is not what I remembered." And they wanted to talk about that, and that's perfectly valid.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think every queer or trans person I know of who makes content about Harry Potter loved Harry Potter as a kid.
I might be the only, I guess technically I make content, I guess, much as I hate it. I always joke, I'm not a YouTuber. I just guest host on a YouTube channel. That's different.
Yeah.
But I like, because I'm just a little too old for that. That was like my sister's thing. So Harry Potter to me was this thing that was like I was putting on for my sister when I was babysitting and doing homework.
Yeah.
And one of my few memories, because I read them as an adult later on. Well, I listened to the audiobooks rather because I was driving for a living. I'm like, I haven't listened to this before. We'll grab those and listen to that. But I think it's one of the earlier movies where he goes to the bank and it has the big fucking Star of David in the middle of the bank, and all the goblins have the hook noses and are bankers. And at the time, I was taking a class on the Holocaust in school. And I went, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Because that, as someone who was studying the Holocaust and like how they depicted the Jews leading up to those events, that was fucking it. And I'm just like, holy shit. So I never really got into Harry Potter because my first exposure to it was, oh gods. It's got,
and that was right there. That was right there in front of everybody, explicitly in the text. It wasn't even subtext.
It was not subtext. That's what they put on the screen. So yeah, and like I never held that against Harry Potter fans because clearly my sister didn't get it. So I wasn't going to hold anyone else to that. My sister's very smart. But yeah, I can see why people coming back to it as an adult who loved it when they were younger going, oh gods. Oh, I missed all of this. Yeah, it was always there. And that's, on its own is fine in some ways because like, unfortunately, we are products of our culture. And that's the stuff she absorbed from her culture.
Yeah. I'm even willing to grant that at the time, anyway, J.K. Rowling didn't realize she was writing an anti-Semitic trope.
I don't think she did.
She's probably aware of that now, but I don't think she was aware of it at the time.
No. Oh, I want to grab this one. I have heard this before. And it's one of those things that I like because of my specific life circumstances. I know I read a bunch of those books, but I could not tell you a thing about them. And also a lot of like that sort of like kids in school fiction is just not something like it just does not click in my brain. I have put off going back to because I don't think it will click with my brain just because I see school stories as an alien experience with which I have no connection. But you are not the first person to say this, and I believe it that you are correct. From everything I understand about that series.
The same would be true of anything you read. The same would be true of anything you read as a kid, right? Like I'm rereading the C.S. Lewis Narnia books right now.
Sure.
What because the movies are coming out soon on Netflix from Greta Gerwig, and there's going to be a lot of culture war discourse around that.
Oh God,
yeah. But like I'm finding things there that resonate with a different part of me than parts that resonated with me when I was a kid. And the parts I liked as a kid, I look at now and I go, ooh, cringe. Oh my God. But there's still stuff there to be mined. And there always will be because every text is a living text.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it's always expressing itself in dialogue with its reader.
Yeah,
which is why I don't believe in the distinction between authorial intent and death of the author. They're both happening all the time.
All the time, yeah. They are not. They're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Like the author has an intent and you have an interpretation, and those are both things that exist simultaneously.
Yep. But anyway, I think we're whipping a dead horse here, and
We are.
we should probably be moving along.
Yes.
We've tried to end the stream 4 times now, I think.
All right, we are ending it now. So
Yeah.
all of you subscribe to Bob of the Old Ways. If you're not subscribed here, subscribe here. Check it out.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. Even though we were without Secret Operative Dane. We will catch you next time. And until then, praise.
Until then, I want to say once more, longing, rusted, furnace, daybreak, 17, benign, 9, homecoming, 1, freight car. That's for you, Dane.